Hello everyone, welcome back to Marvel Mania. I am Captain Logan.
And I'm Eric.
And I'm Sarah.
And Sarah is here with us today to watch and talk about Captain America, plus Iron Man, but mostly Captain America and Iron Man, and the Avengers Civil War! Eric and I have already recorded this, and unfortunately, we were done. We have actually finished Marvel Mania already. You are seeing future us before you will see past us tackling Apocalypse and Doctor Strange. And unfortunately, I lost the file for that, and I've been hitting myself all day long with this Blu-ray. And over that, so obviously the only thing we could do, because we have to tackle all of these, is do it again. But the nice thing is this I'm going to do with Sarah, who kind of wished she had been on this in the first place, because she was listening to us in the bedroom. The next day, Sarah goes, "Yeah, I disagreed with you on all kinds of, with both of you guys on all kinds of stuff. I wish I'd been there. I would have had stuff to say this time." Yeah. So this will be a different experience for me and Eric, and I'm sure other discussion will come up that you guys didn't get. I mean, you guys didn't get to hear the last one, but this won't. I guess what I'm saying is, hopefully this won't be a dull commentary, because Eric and I did just do this, and we're kind of kicking ourselves for having to redo it, but it should be fresh for us to some degree again. And you know, Eric, all day long, the commentary we did the other day has been kind of fresh in my mind and like repeat. Like, there's a lot of things I remember that I said that I want to make sure that gets said again. So there will be some of this for us will just be a repeat of conversations we've had already. So you'll get to see Eric and I do some acting.
And I'll just make sure I disagree with everything you say.
Just like with Eric, when we recorded this before, I want to front load this by saying that Eric and I both agree that this movie maybe should have had Avengers in the title, or should have been.
It's not a Captain America movie.
Marvel's Civil War, and there is some
It's not a Captain America movie, but it's as much an Iron Man movie as does a Captain America movie, and Avengers close second there.
And that I agree with, actually, because I always forget that's just Captain America. I always think it's Avengers.
And of course, everybody is in this, minus Hulk and Thor. And like, we'll talk about all the ways in which it is a Winter Soldier sequel, and all the things that the Russos brought from that to this, in you know, making this very much feel like a sequel to that movie. But by and large, it is really difficult to remember that Captain America is in the titles. I wanted to front load that. We
constantly accidentally call it Avengers Civil War.
Yeah, constantly. It's become a running gag with us on the channel. So I wanted to front load that so that we don't spend the entire commentary talking about that, although it will come up, I am sure. Eric, any other preamble you'd like to do before we get rolling?
No.
Eric's just ready to be done with Marvel Mania. He thought we were already done with Marvel Mania. But I feel like I can say now, look forward to the finale, because it went really well. Okay, here we go. Everybody, thanks always for watching. We sure appreciate it. Oh wait, no, it's not done. We still have to do this. If you want to watch the movie with us, get out your DVD, your Blu-ray, your digital copy, however you want to watch it. Get it past all the menus. Just timestamp 0 and get ready to press play as soon as I say now. Is everybody ready? Is the dog ready?
He looks half asleep, so he's
right.
good.
Cool. He wasn't here with us before. This is our dog, Apollo. You can't see him right now because he's taking a nap. Okay, here we go. Everybody, please press play right now!
So exciting.
Yeah. So, Sarah, I cannot remember right off. You got to see this with me 3 weeks early, yes?
Yes.
Yeah.
I did, and it was
And that was
amazing.
the only time you saw it in the theater.
Yes. Yep.
Eric, I wish we knew what year this took place in.
Well, I know when it takes place. I'm wondering where.
Oh, okay, yeah. You're right, they never give you both. With the big giant letters.
Yeah.
They never say 1991.
Well, you know,
wherever
it's
we are right
it's
now.
Snowing. It's the only place on Earth that snows. And look, there's a star. It's Russia.
No, because the Winter Soldier has nothing to do with Russia.
Sarah, do you remember when we got to see this early that the film reel started? I say film reel, it's digital now, but it started 5 or 10 seconds late.
Yes.
And it's weird because we're used to usually seeing the logos, but Eric and I have been talking about this. Sometimes we get a teaser like this before the logos now, and sometimes we don't. We go back and forth on it. And everybody in the theater was worried that we had missed a whole chunk, a whole teaser or something.
Mm-hmm.
That maybe we were even in the middle of the movie, and then it kept going, so we assumed we were good. So all we missed the first time around was 1991.
Yeah. Well, I know I was confused the whole rest of the movie because I didn't know when it happened.
That is, of course, information we kind of get later.
Yeah.
So all of the words that they use to activate the Winter Soldier, activate his programming altogether are kind of interesting, and I wonder how many of them are supposed to have anything to do with him personally.
I know that the Russos talk about that on the commentary, but I can't remember what they say. I can't remember if they're like, we just picked words.
We have.
They just picked words that sounded cool or words that seemed like they had a personal. I don't remember what they said, but when you listen to the commentary, they do talk about it, so you will get answers.
It doesn't seem random. Benign is fascinating. Because, of course, he's the opposite of that. But we do know that Homecoming was a complete accident.
Yes.
I don't think they even knew the name of that Spider-Man movie when they made this movie.
Surely not. Given how late an addition Spider-Man feels to this movie, this is all probably written before they have that title.
Once it comes out, they've got it.
Yeah, but you can't go back and change it then.
You can't go back. There's no going back.
We need a word with as many syllables as Homecoming and makes your mouth do the same.
This is like John Harrison versus Harriman in Star Trek Into Darkness.
Yeah, but that's just such
Harrison!
It's just such a setup. That scene is such a setup for spoofs, where you just insert any other random words.
Oh yeah, no, that's true. Sure,
Sandwich.
Klondike bar. Bacon and eggs.
Where are we?
Why don't they ever tell us where we are?
Okay, well,
this time they do
give us present day, yeah.
a time. Okay. All right.
I know I said this in the previous commentary that nobody heard.
Yeah, no, please do that.
The dialogue,
say all the things.
The dialogue exchanges in this opening always feel stilted to me.
Yeah.
I know they're trying to be covert, but it feels stilted.
Yeah, and I didn't get that until I heard you say that, and I agree with you that some of it is that way. Now, you could... Like I don't think it's line delivery. I think it's script, because they're trying to downplay everything because they're incognito, so... That's understandable. Yay, it's my favorite guy now.
I also think she doesn't deliver that line as well as it could be delivered.
Are you talking about Black Widow?
Yeah, because he has a great setup, which is now I see what people say you're paranoid, or has anybody ever told you you're paranoid? And then she doesn't greatly deliver, that's my face, why did you hear something?
Yeah, and I am starting to question Scarlett Johansson's acting a little bit.
After Ghost in the Shell?
After Ghost in the Shell, yeah. And I don't mean in everything. There are some things where I think she's absolutely wonderful.
You love her in Winter Soldier.
I love her in Winter Soldier. And a lot of people have issues with her there, although people talk more about her hair, which I still don't understand. But
it's terrible.
I don't get it. I still don't understand. I watched the whole movie with you guys, or with you. I don't understand. Do we have somebody else with us for Winter Soldier?
No.
Okay.
No, but we talked about it in Avengers.
Oh, that's right. And yes, because you and CJ were both ganging up on me about it. I didn't understand that. Falcon is my new favorite character in the Marvel Universe. I wanted him to get his own 6-film
You don't know if you know this, he has
franchise.
an ongoing book right now you could be reading.
I know, and I should, and I read the first issue and liked it a lot. I just have a lot on my comic plate right now. But
it's the next big event.
Yeah, but the thing is, I haven't fallen in love with him in the comics the way I have the movies yet. So much of it is Anthony Mackie.
Yeah.
And if cut the check became a thing that Falcon said, I would not mind. That is totally fine with me.
I like that he wears a mask on his mask. It's silly and comic booky.
So I think this opening sequence is interesting and compared to the one from Age of Ultron, because both of them are the Avengers in a movie that is kind of an Avengers movie. Like they've been working together for a while and they're on a mission, and
This is an Avengers
checking back in
mission
with
through Winter Soldier's lens.
Exactly, yeah. And so it's interesting to compare how the Russos do this kind of a scene versus how Whedon did this kind of a scene. And you notice, like, the color palette is a little bit more muted. It's shot more like a spy thriller thing.
Which I'll complain about when we get to Vision.
Yeah, and I'm with you. I think some of that is problematic. And you even have issues, if I'm not mistaken, with some of how this sequence is shot, don't you? Like some of it's a little close. And
specifically when we get to the Black Widow fight scene, it's real shaky cammy.
Yeah.
I was worried in the theater where I was like, oh no, I hope this isn't what the whole movie looks like. And it sometimes is. The action's not as clean as it is in Winter Soldier. And they think it looks better. They talk about it in the commentary, they think it looks better. And I don't understand directors' obsession with shaky cam.
Again, it's not as bad as a lot of shaky cam, and I feel like Hollywood is getting more and more away from that.
Yeah. I get the point of it, but it only makes sense in certain kinds of films. Because it's supposed to be a POV thing. Action scenes and fight scenes are real kinetic and they're real haphazard, and so you're feeling how the character feels.
You want to feel like you're in that moment with them.
And I don't want to feel that in a summer blockbuster. It's fine in the Bourne movies because those are more grounded, more gritty films, and that makes sense.
Yeah, but then Winter Soldier ends up being more of that kind of a movie, so you can kind of understand
it's
it.
Still a big. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't like it in general, but I never really even noticed it here. But maybe
you'll see it when Black Widow goes to fight. That's mostly where it seems to be.
So you want to talk about Crossbones?
He's got a hockey mask.
He does.
He's Casey Jones.
He's wearing hockey pads.
He's wearing hockey pads.
Yeah, Crossbones is another example of a setup that they don't really pay off. I keep getting promised things by the Marvel films, and they're never satisfactory payoffs. At least, in the way that they were promised, and B...
You just mean it feels like it's going to be a bigger deal, and then we just knock it out in the first scene because we don't really have a place for him, and we didn't really know where we were going next time when we set that whole thing up.
Yeah, and it's a big deal at the end of Winter Soldier. Like, this guy's coming back. Look how messed up he is. Like...
And the first time I saw this, I didn't even realize who this guy was.
You weren't the only one.
Yeah.
I mean, Crossbones has got to be one of those characters that people kind of forget about from Winter Soldier, and he is there throughout. It's not really the same.
But he's not wearing a costume.
Same as Bucky, but
like, I think it might be a reveal when he takes his mask off.
Yeah.
Or I think it might supposed to be a reveal when he takes his mask off.
I think it is. I think some of that also, and it's really hard to get away from this, is just if you know your comic stuff, you're ahead of the curve.
But this is a thing that's becoming a trend where Marvel keeps doing this, and it's always like it's almost always treated like it's an exception. Like, well, yeah, but it worked in this situation, or oh yeah, but we needed to do it in this situation. But it's all of their payoffs. You know, I love Iron Man 3. I like what we do with the Mandarin, but the Mandarin's that.
Yeah.
Like
we were promised something from the first film in this whole universe,
and they didn't deliver on it, and they keep doing that.
And that's 5 years later. We finally get there.
It makes me worried for anything that I'm excited for that's a setup. We could get to Doctor Strange 2 and Baron Mordo's something completely different.
Now, that's a stretch, because Mordo's such a big part of... I mean, yeah, I see where you're going with that. You have that with the Mandarin, with Iron Man also, so that it's really strange that we did that. But Mordo is such a big part of Doctor Strange mythology, I can't really imagine we would do that.
But I can imagine getting to a sequel where he's working for another force or being mind-controlled or something.
But not taking out the first sequence.
No, but I could see him not being... I could see him not being the villain of the second film.
This is much more like what we do with the payoff in Age of Ultron for...
Strucker.
For Strucker. Von Strucker, yeah.
Yeah.
But this is worse because that was actually in the movie. With Crossbones.
Yeah.
And that guy gives a good performance, and as Crossbones, like he's given it his all. He's still excited to be here,
and he's
not playing it like I'm getting taken out.
I like what we do with Crossbones here as a this is where it's all shaky, and I don't like it. But I like Crossbones as maybe the first we've really had in the Marvel Universe of just like a villain showing up and has a personal vendetta with the hero and gets beaten. Like, that was always the thing I wanted in the Spider-Man movies. Is why can't we open with him taking out a villain and then get to our villain?
But with Spider-Man, we were generally talking about characters that weren't necessarily established already. Where
like
these
Shocker
are street bad guys. They're not necessarily already a part of the mythology. And maybe they could show up again later on, but that's a good way to introduce them. You throw them in a paddy wagon, they break out later.
But he's kind of like that.
There is this wonderful ongoing thing that we'll see with Falcon throughout this movie where he is self-aware and almost kind of speaking for the audience sometimes, but also he's just enjoying his job so much and will kind of keep talking about his suit and kind of comic things, and it never gets old. He ends up being the best kind of comic relief, and then obviously he gets serious when it's time to be serious.
But yeah, it's interesting how kind of gritty and grounded this whole sequence is, because he feels like one of the most comic book villains we've had thus far.
Okay, have you ever heard of Nestle Milo?
No.
Okay, because Eric asked about it too, and we wondered if it was a thing that was actually in the States, and it is sometimes sold here. I think it's another kind of chocolate powder thing from Nestle. It's a thing that is sold here, but it's made overseas, and the family that I was big friends with in high school that you know of, Sarah, they used to buy that stuff, I think.
Okay. Huh.
I wanted you to say go with a smile, but that doesn't really go with your whole motif. Like Deadpool, I don't know that his face is as messed up as they think it is.
Yep.
But when you shoot it from certain angles, it looks more messed up. And you suggested when we did this
it's because he has
before,
hair.
it was because he has hair.
Somehow
it makes him more
disturbing. Makes him look,
I'm just going to spend this whole commentary telling Eric's points. So you guys get Eric's points in there.
So this opening's a little contrived. We need something to get the ball rolling that's kind of their fault, because nothing that they're going to bring up is the superhero's fault. Yeah. So we need something that's kind of their fault.
And so she saves every person on the ground in a crowded square and messes up a building by accident.
There might have been people in that building.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying that...
But if she wasn't there, it would have been a lot worse.
Crowded square. Disaster anyway.
But if there was no Captain America, there wouldn't have been a Crossbones, and then...
Yeah, but they don't talk about that, and they should.
Vision brings it up.
Oh, does he?
He has an algorithm about escalation since Iron Man.
So this is ultra creepy.
It's super creepy. He doesn't know how to play. He doesn't know how to play himself younger, and so he's got this real weird thing going on. He's got a really strange vibe. He doesn't feel younger. He feels, I don't know, something else off.
And I want Mr. Softy to be the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man for this universe. He's wearing a shirt.
Mr. Softy probably is something. I bet you it's like an LA thing.
Maybe so. Because, I mean, we have other product placement things in this.
You know, it's interesting. I hadn't really thought of this, but...
He's wearing a t-shirt if you're not looking at this with a cartoon ice cream cone man.
The Marvel films don't have the thing the Marvel comics have. Everything's not in New York. Like cinematic Iron Man is very much California. Like that's where he lives. That's where he.
Oh, that's a great point.
His movies happen.
Yes, Mr. Softy does exist. Yes, we should have gotten Mr. Softy ice cream for this. Its headquarters is in New Jersey, and it was founded in 1956.
So if they tried to do
the more you know
Mr. Stay Puft thing, they probably would have gotten sued.
Well, that's probably product. They probably paid for that.
Maybe, or maybe
so
it's just a shirt that he wanted to wear, because I get the impression that...
You never get something like that up front like that without the company paying for it.
That's true.
But yeah, even though this... Because I tried to rationalize this the first time I saw it as, well, this is a holographic simulation, so maybe it's okay that he looks computerized. Well, nothing else does.
Yeah.
They should have cast him if they were going to do that. Because Robert Downey is just too old now to go back and play his 18, 20-year-old self.
Yeah, and if you...
It would have even been better if we just were supposed to suspend our disbelief and they didn't do anything to his face.
And Robert Downey,
that would have been
and
better.
Robert Downey now is such a different person than he was in, like, say, Weird Science. Like, he's basically giving this performance but de-aged, and it doesn't fit. It's not how he acted back then, and so I don't know. It feels he doesn't feel like he's playing younger.
And at the very least, it's just super distracting because he looks like Pee-wee Herman. He's got a real plastic face.
Yeah.
I just don't know how necessary that scene was. It's a well-written scene, but that's there to give his father and mother some FaceTime so that when we get to the end, we remember that they were a part of this whole thing. With Winter Soldier and that he murdered them. Spoiler alert, but that's what happened.
No, I know.
Did that bug you?
Yeah.
I know you've talked about that you don't think he would need a teleprompter.
He would not need a teleprompter.
Oh, there's the community alum in this one. I'm imagining there will be one in Infinity War. The Russos so far have put an actor from Community in each of them.
They made a sitcom called Community. That's their first big thing.
Yeah, and he's the dean of the college in that.
They went from a talkie sitcom to this kind of stuff. It's amazing. Yeah.
You really need to watch at least the two paintball episodes, because that's them doing action movies.
Yeah.
And there's a huge leap from the first paintball to the second paintball. Like, they're more experienced. They know what they're doing more.
It's sort of like Whedon doing a musical episode of television and then somebody handing him the keys to a big musical. I mean, it's exactly like that if that happened. Except that should also happen.
Yeah.
That really should happen. We should talk about this.
We should talk about this.
So there's Alfre Woodard, and she, as far as we're aware, is the only person so far that has played two different characters. She might not be the only one. I might have missed something. But
at least in cinematic universe.
Two different characters in the cinematic universe and real close together. She is one of the major bad guys in Luke Cage.
It's about 3 months apart? 4 months apart?
Yeah, it's real close together. She's Mariah, and when we watched this together a few months ago, not when we did the commentary that you're not listening to, this is now the third time Eric and I have watched this together, but we both looked at each other, wait a minute, it's Black Mariah!
I really like that moment where she reaches in her bag and he stops her hand.
Yeah.
And then it's like, it's not occupational hazard. That's a thing that I'm sure, or I know...
Improvised.
No.
Excuse me.
Police deal with, spies deal with. And I like the idea that they're kind of thinking about, well, if your career is always in danger, you're always thinking about where's the next threat coming from. And it's a nice little moment.
And I also kind of like the idea that he's sort of remained paranoid since the incident.
Yeah.
It's not the same thing, but I think his and after what happened with Age of Ultron and stuff, like, all his senses are heightened at this point, right? And I like that a lot.
Which might be why he's using a teleprompter. He might be more frazzled, he might be more scatterbrained.
I don't think he has
because he's not the same guy that he
together,
is in Iron Man 2.
I think they just did that because the technology looks really cool, and they like to put advanced tech around.
And they need the Pepper thing. They need you to know that Pepper's not there.
Right. So that ends up being just a device so that he has to deal with that in that moment. So, you said that you wanted somehow or rather for that to still be Mariah.
Yes.
There's no way.
I want Mariah to be engineering the defeat of...
See, it doesn't work because she's a politician, and so her face is everywhere. People would know what she looks like, so she couldn't go undercover and pretend like she was this mother of a kid that she blames Tony Stark for killing.
I mean... She could. Norman Osborn's the Green Goblin and became head of Hammer.
One of the things I'm most impressed with this movie is T'Challa. And that they, in very, very little time... T'Chaka, that's what I meant to say, yeah. Well, yeah, both, but T'Chaka, yeah. That they make me... that's Black Panther's dad. He was on the screen there. I just didn't know if you knew who that was.
Yes,
but anyway,
I love Black Panther.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know you had any history with Black Panther.
Ever since what show is that?
Are you thinking of Martian Manhunter?
No. I love him too, but I'm trying to remember what I...
Those are different characters.
Is it the Earth's Mightiest Hero cartoon?
Probably. It was a cartoon I watched.
No, she's talking about, and I don't even think this was very good, she's talking about Ultimate Avengers 2.
Okay. Oh.
Because she's never watched the Earth's Mightiest Heroes cartoon.
You'd
like it better if you watched that.
And I loved him. So,
I've
always been a fan.
He's Earth's Mightiest Avengers quite a bit.
Is he?
Yeah. Well, he's a long-term Avenger. At least to the 70s and 80s.
But I was just going to mention that we get very little screen time with him, and it is heart-wrenching when he dies.
Yeah.
And that's amazing.
Yeah.
It goes without saying, but the juggling of characters in this, both with and without full-blown character arcs, is amazing. Everybody has their own voice. Everybody has presence. I'm not sure it's Scarlett Johansson's best performance, but other than that, and she's not bad or anything.
No, she has
and some of that is on the page, because there are things they do with her that you and I are both I think in agreement on that aren't.
But there's
sure about.
There's a thing with Scarlett Johansson where, like, when you see her in other roles, more lighter roles, more human roles, she can do those well, but when she does an action movie, she has a very distinct, just like, this is how my face looks, and this is how I talk, and this is how I'm going to be in every scene. This is what tough Scarlett Johansson looks like. And it shows up, it's not just Black Widow, it's anytime she does an action movie. She gives the same performance. And it's a little wooden. And it works for Black Widow because she's supposed to be more reserved and stoic and
And sometimes that really serves her, like in Her, and I kind of wish she would do more voice work after that. You should see that movie. It's just brilliant.
This one's not our fault. It's S.H.I.E.L.D.'s fault, which you're a government organization, which makes it your fault.
Yeah, I don't understand that.
Yeah, and let's just leave the alien invasion to wreck the city.
Yeah. What are
this
we supposed
one's
to do
not
there?
our fault. It's S.H.I.E.L.D.'s fault, which is a government organization, which kind of makes it your fault.
Yeah. See, I really like the idea of doing Civil War this early, and you almost think that the notion of legislation would happen even before this. You kind of wonder why the government hasn't been trying to control them harder, especially after we deal with the cynicism of the government in Winter Soldier, and of course that's a Black Ops covert separate entity, but you still get the sense that that's kind of how the American government tends to operate, this compartmentalization thing. So you wonder why they haven't worked harder to force the Avengers to become part of them and to control them.
Well, remember the Avengers start as a government organization, theoretically.
Well, I guess that's true. They're working with... But they still have autonomy in that they seem to be allowed to go off and respond to things.
That's because they bring them together, and then the Avengers are like, well, we're just kind of going to do our own thing.
Yeah. I would just think that this conversation could happen earlier, even without an incident, leading to it.
The problem is, though, the incidents they showed aren't their fault, except for Ultron, and I don't know if anyone knows that Ultron is their fault.
Yeah, and that's the big...
Which is a scene that I think could get picked up on. I think we could have a film where someone leaks the fact that
I think Ultron should
Stark
have
made
been the
Ultron.
impetus for this in the first place. I mean, you had that built in. You don't need to contrive that opening scene to get us here, because you already have something created by one of your Avengers because he's trying to control too much that almost destroys the planet.
Yeah, and I mean, what is their counter argument anyway? What would they have if the Avengers had been controlled by some government entity? What would they have advised them to do differently?
Yeah.
At all in any of these circumstances, these guys are not going around the world half-cocked just blowing things up. They're stopping imminent threats.
Yeah, the best besides Ultron, which Eric and I are both fuzzy on whether this is where the Howard the Duck cameo happens, right? Right, because it's Cleveland. See, now I just want to yell at the screen every time.
I don't
Cleveland.
Even if S.H.I.E.L.D. or the government knows, I don't think the fact that Ultron was made by Tony Stark is public.
And listen, which means if they don't know that, the only leg they have to stand on is some of you aren't ready to use your powers yet, because you don't have enough control over them. That's all you have with Scarlet Witch at the beginning. But that doesn't explain the other things they put on the screen. Like what they're basically saying is collateral damage, and you guys aren't careful enough about the people that are on the ground level that you're dropping stuff on top of or accidentally killing. And
the collateral damage.
Yeah, you're thinking of yourselves. Yeah, I actually just defined collateral damage.
Good job.
You are. Anybody that doesn't know what collateral damage is after BVS, that's what after Man of Steel. That's what it is. Anyway, but they're basically, I guess, trying to make the argument that the Avengers are seeing themselves as above people and above the law and acting too godlike. We haven't seen enough of that yet, enough examples of it. I just don't know that we even... So, if they were using those things as flimsy excuses to take control of the Avengers, I would actually buy that more. And I just don't really... I'm not sure that that's what's happening, really. Like, I think they're trying to play it more like they have an argument.
Yeah, and that's why I really can't take Iron Man's side in this at all. Because I think the argument's too flimsy. There is no argument there, I think.
Well, it's about accountability.
There becomes an argument with Captain America.
It's not about accountability in this. It's about, we want the government to control you and make decisions so that we can point and shoot you like a weapon.
But that's not what Tony Stark says. Tony Stark says it's about accountability. It's about if we mess up, if a bunch of people die, someone has to be there to hold us accountable.
And he just did that the last Avengers movie. Which is, again, why this feels like a sequel to that movie. And I made this argument before that you guys didn't get to hear. This plays very much like weirdly a thematic trilogy between Winter Soldier, Age of Ultron, and Civil War, which is, again, part of why it feels weird that this just has Captain America in the title, especially because we get real distanced from him throughout this movie. But anyway, about the accountability thing. If you had any more to say about that.
No.
I think it's actually cynically realistic for the government that they would show up and be like, well, if we were telling you what to do, it'd be better. Mm-hmm. I don't think they actually have to justify it to themselves.
I don't either.
Like, it's just, well, you didn't do it the best you could, but if you were working for us, you would. But the other option of no oversight is potentially really dangerous.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, but I think I actually think that they if they actually go and break laws, wouldn't you think they'd be held accountable for that? I mean, it's not like if they turned into villains, then they can't be stopped.
But lots of things superheroes do could be considered law-breaking in general. The entire plot of Age of Ultron could be considered an act of war on foreign soil. I don't know.
So once again, all we had to do was make that the impetus for this.
Yeah.
Because that is a thing that could have been prevented, potentially, if you could trust that Tony Stark, as a government agent, wouldn't break the law. If Tony Stark had to...
Here's the vision, the equation thing. Where he talks about escalation and how they could, in some way, be viewed as responsible for this. Or for the supervillains and things like that. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's okay. But there hasn't been enough of that yet for him to necessarily be making that argument, maybe?
Yeah, and aren't there more superheroes being created at the same time as supervillains? So it may not be one causes the other. It could be just super-powered beings are on the rise in general. Some are good guys, some are bad guys. Just because two things happen simultaneously,
and you might need a balance.
One causes the other.
And you also have to keep in mind that half or more of the Avengers don't have powers.
2. It's Black Widow and Hawkeye.
But I just mean, we're talking about super-powered beings.
Okay.
Iron Man and Falcon also don't have powers. The way Vision's talking about super-powered beings before he's talking about escalation of technology.
Mm-hmm.
He is one of those, of course, but that's a thing to keep in mind.
It's not 4.
Should be at least a 3-8.
He could have had a 3-8. I cannot remember what point I was trying to make earlier.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
I just trying to make a 4.0.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Could have had a 4.0. But yeah,
that's weird because the whole thing in Ultron is that they're saving everyone in that city.
Yeah, and who was the one who pulled the city out of into the sky? I mean, that wasn't Tony Stark.
Well, no.
So,
but
and it does make perfect sense that Tony is the one taking this stance.
Because he's the one that just messed up real bad.
I just wish we talked about it. Because Ultron doesn't come up enough, and I don't know if Ultron himself comes up at all, really.
He says Ultron once when he's talking about why him and Pepper are on the outs.
Okay, and that makes sense. That actually makes a lot of sense given the events of Iron Man 3. Oh, I remember the point I was making a minute ago. It was that if Tony Stark had to bring the idea of Ultron to an authority, they could have said no. So there's an argument to be made there that that there should be accountability. Maybe there should have been a vote. Maybe it wasn't okay. At least there should be a vote in the Avengers. You know, maybe it wasn't okay that he just convinces Bruce Banner to go along with it, and then they make this grand AI, and he's trying to put he's trying to put robots all over the world to protect it. Maybe he should have to go to someone with that idea, right?
But the point is, how do you know the people he's taking it to are above board themselves?
Well, of course, and that's the question on the other side.
Yeah, but when you're dealing with government entities, and especially like the UN or whatever, it gets riskier and riskier and less principled.
It is really humorous that the UN has any power in this movie. That lets you know this is a science fiction universe.
And that's why it's kind of interesting.
But that's
London!
But I don't think they're saying that the UN has any more power than it does now, and I think that's the point. If they come under the control of the UN, they will never do anything ever again. They will just sit somewhere in a building.
They'll use them like a nuclear deterrent.
Exactly, and that's all they'll be.
Well, but you can't know that, and we don't ever know what the text actually says. We get a lot of people talking about telling us what they're getting from whatever the Accords say, but we don't actually know what they are. Because I've heard people talk about this movie, talk about registration. Registration never comes up in this film.
No.
But maybe it is in the Accords. I don't know.
No, it's just all we really know is you have to sign a document that says you work for the government and you have to answer to them for everything you want to do. So obviously, not to spell out the plot of the film, but obviously Captain America's stance is, if something bad happens and we know we can stop it, I can't just follow orders. And that's, of course, really consistent, not just with Captain America, but with the things he's done in the past. What did he do in First Avenger when he was told no, but he knew something was the right thing to do? He went off and did it anyway, and arguably they won the war because of it.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the really interesting things about that is, if Iron Man gets carte blanche, at least before all of this, he tries to put a Band-Aid around the world and prevent everything. If Captain America gets carte blanche, he actually is arguably going to wait until something bad happens and always do the right thing. And so there's as much a question, Sarah, about whether or not you can trust the good guys to always respond in kind and use their massive power correctly, as there is in asking if the government is, has their heads in the right place.
Yeah, but
well, and this is.
I mean, but who would you rather trust, the good guys or the government? And I know that
Well, that's the question.
And also,
I don't know. I like that when I get to the end of this movie, I can't answer that question.
The people who have the ability
to act
great. Should be able to act and should be bound by rules and laws, and they're, as long as they're acting in the public good and doing the right thing, I think they should be free to act.
But when we didn't have oversight, Iron Man created Ultron.
Right, but even if he had oversight, he could have still created Ultron, just like Captain America could say no to S.H.I.E.L.D.
And we don't know what the Accords say, so we have Captain America saying they will tell us when we can act. As far as Iron Man brings up, it's only about accountability. It's if we mess up, it's holding us accountable for our mistakes and our actions.
Maybe they can decide who can and can't be on the team, and we have no idea what's in it. You're right, and that is a big problem.
I don't think it's a problem. It makes the argument easier, and also, when we do things like this in the real world legally, it's usually vague.
Yeah, but I would like to know more about what's in it, and I haven't really thought a lot about that. I want to talk about T'Challa, because, oh my god, he's amazing.
Yeah.
But I'm sure you want to talk about the Sharon Carter thing.
Yes.
We just talked over. Go ahead.
I hate the Sharon Carter speech. I don't like Sharon Carter in this movie in general. I think she can be completely removed from this movie, and you lose nothing. At the end of this movie, she should be a fugitive, and I don't get the sense that she is. But that speech in general,
He says that because of all the rules she breaks and she steals things from the government, and they never seem to notice.
But that speech in particular is very just like, if there's anyone in the crowd that needs to be inspired right now, I'm saying these things so that you are inspired. And I know it's a speech written by JMS. I think it's a dangerous speech that can be used for any argument, in any position. I don't think it's a good speech either.
And I don't totally agree with that, because I feel like it knows the speech in
it's assuming that you're a moral person,
right?
And that you're on moral high ground. But everyone thinks they're a moral person, and everyone thinks they're on moral high ground. So, yeah, she's saying that to Captain America, and he's thinking, yeah, I'm doing the right thing. He's not doing the right thing, because the problem with Captain America in this movie is whether his argument is his actual argument is valid or not. It doesn't matter, because his entire impetus is "but my friend." He stops making the argument real fast and is just like, "But I have to do this thing because of my friend." He's really emotionally compromised in this film.
That's true, and I think he takes it too far, and I think the movie is telling you that he takes that too far. Iron Man also goes too far by the end, at least in the fight, but he still thinks that he's doing the right thing because no one is listening to him about who and what Winter Soldier is, and they're not being fair to a guy who should, have the right to explain himself. So, as I said, that's super sad and insane that I care.
How many movies have we seen where we have a character on screen for the amount of time that T'Chaka's on, we're like, well, I didn't get to know him, so I can't feel anything.
Yeah.
But you really feel his death, because, I don't know, he's got presence, he's a great actor.
And it helps that T'Challa comes up to him.
Mm-hmm.
From moment one, from the first second he's on screen, I find myself going, oh, this guy can carry his own movie. And by the end of the film, I'm ready to go see that movie tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
It's fantastic. But I also think that exchange between them is really well written, and that is a lot of what helps.
Yeah.
What helps me care about him. So I totally understand why you say she's just a plot device.
And I don't think they have chemistry, which is another problem, because we're going to play this like a romance as the film goes on. I don't
agree with that. I think they aren't around each other enough to that they've made that chemistry palpable yet. But I think I like them together so far.
She's here because the movie says Captain America, and so this has to be a sequel to Winter Soldier. I don't think she needs to be here. I think she wastes screen time,
But I think she does, because the next time we see her, we may completely forget that she was in Winter Soldier, and I think some people probably had that. It's hard to juggle all these characters.
Yeah.
But I also think that there's... I guess this is just because of the end of this movie, but I don't know when we're going to have a chance to put them together again. I mean, I guess...
Yeah, we have no idea where Captain America's popping up next. I guess Infinity War...
I'm just saying, like, we know he's not going to get his own movie again anytime soon, and they think this is a Captain America movie, so it's sticky.
Yeah, but then what's the point of throwing her in this movie, and then we're not going to have another Captain America movie? It's not like we're going to do anything with her. I can't imagine she's in Infinity War.
No, I can't imagine that either. It's starting to feel like, and we'll see what happens, it's starting to feel like there needs to be a movie before Infinity War, but we don't know exactly what happens in that.
Well, and my big
takeaway... As cosmic as you have to assume that is, though, you wouldn't think there would be time for any of that stuff.
And my big takeaway when I walked out of the theater with this was, I don't care about Phase 3 anymore. I just want the Fallout movies from this. I just want to see where everyone is following this.
And that's interesting, but I also wanted more Fallout from Age of Ultron, and this should have had some of that.
Yeah.
I still don't understand how Tony Stark isn't being hunted at the end of that movie, unless, again, just no one knows conveniently somehow that
Well, who would know?
Who else could it be?
Hank Pym? I don't know.
I guess.
Stephen Strange?
Wouldn't people be... But wouldn't there be suspicion? You know? You made the Iron Man suit.
Yeah.
Wouldn't there be some suspicion? And the Avengers know who did it, and I'm not saying that they would go run off and tell, but you'd think that maybe some of them might wonder if he should be allowed to even continue, making artificial intelligence and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And
Vision.
And some of it is just my own personal interpretation, but when you got to the end of Age of Ultron, when he drives away in that car, and now Captain America is running the team by himself. He was already the leader, but now he's got his own team, and we've got Vision and Falcon, etc. I just really thought he was driving off because he was going to be on the run now.
And
I was surprised.
Never read it like that.
That's not what they did.
That's not the conversation they have. The conversation they have is, I'm done being a superhero. Because his whole arc in that is, don't we fight the fight so that then we can go home?
No, I know that.
And at the end of the movie, he's going home.
You don't know where he's going. He just drives away in a car.
Well, but that's how I read it, was that he's going home.
Right, but but it's ambiguous. That conversation doesn't have to be about him being on the run for me to not wonder if maybe that's what's happening. And I said interpretation. I'm not saying I left the theater saying, oh, he's a fugitive now. I just wondered.
Mm.
Because it just seemed to me like that was the only thing that made sense. And I also assumed everyone knew he made Ultron. And we can't make that assumption, it turns out.
What we really need... Okay, that's the first strike where she should be arrested. She gives him confidential documents on the case that they're working on. That's the first one.
I still think it's possible that she photocopied those documents and nobody knows she took them.
That's fine, but by the time we get to the end of this movie, there are no she did not photocopy Captain America's outfit and the Falcon's bird suit.
Do you have any opinion on this bit of it at all?
No.
Because it's not a thing I ever thought to even...
It's something that seems to happen in all these kind of movies, so I never gave it any real thought.
It is a massive complaint that a lot of people have about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear people talk about it all the time.
Is it?
Yeah. You're not the only one. I heard people before you and I talked about it complaining about that.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I heard like a couple of people... I didn't realize it was like a thing that people kept.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm not saying there's not a valid argument. It's just a thing I didn't even think to question. It didn't occur to me. And sometimes this, to your point, Eric, like, this gives a lot of credence to what you're saying. She is so much of a plot device that it didn't even occur to me what she was there for. Because it just wasn't on my radar. That's not, that stuff, it gets you from A to B to C. I'm like, concerned with the character stuff, and I'm not thinking about that stuff. It didn't occur to me to question it.
Okay, so for no reason but because I'm thinking of it right at this moment.
Look, ice cream.
And for some reason I like to talk about hair. So there's this thing that's done in the comics with Winter Soldier.
Does that guy have two liners? Sorry.
That I think is... that I've never agreed with and always thought was a weird choice from Brubaker, which is when Winter Soldier shows up, he's got the long hair. And then when he gets his mind back and becomes Bucky again, he cuts his hair. And that feels flipped from how I would understand communist Russia. You would think as an agent of communist Russia, he'd have short hair, and as rebelling as himself, he would grow his hair out. He's got long hair in these films. I'm wondering if we will get to a point where he's more himself and he will cut his hair back to something resembling the Bucky haircut from the first film. But is
he rebelling as himself, or is he more reverting back to his old self? Because
I guess it's reverting back to his old self. If he's
reverting back to his old self, he kind of grew up in the 40s.
Yeah.
So I could see more that he'd prefer the shorter cut.
But I like the idea of him maybe keeping it longer because he becomes kind of an amalgam of the two people, where he's not the Bucky from before. He can never go back and be that guy. So he has to find a way to, and this is what he's kind of doing here, he has to find a way to make the Winter Soldier something positive. And so as an identity thing, you would merge those things together. And so I can see why he might keep the look, too.
Now, a complaint that
Both things could make sense.
A complaint that I think I can laud against all three Captain America films. I have no idea.
You don't think any of them are Captain America films? None of them should have Captain America in the title.
I don't know who Bucky is. Like, this film, we're finally getting a sense of him as a person, but he spends so much of this movie in prison and not, like, talking to people. I don't know who Bucky as a character is. And that makes sense in Winter Soldier. But, like, we're kind of getting him back here, but I don't know who he is as a person. I couldn't describe cinematic Bucky to you. kind of want a Winter Soldier movie.
Yeah.
Just so I can
It
spend
almost feels
time
like
with
he
this
needs
guy.
one. But to be fair, there hasn't been a chance to get that because he doesn't fully know who he is yet.
No, I know, but
And so that's why you don't know. I think that's part of the point of the character. He's like,
Well,
I
and
don't
again-
even think that's a problem yet.
yeah, I don't know. Complaint is the wrong word, but it's a thing with. I don't have a good enough sense.
And I
of-
don't think there's a ton to him before he's Winter Soldier. I think he becomes interesting after that. You know, yeah, he's kind of your typical wet behind the ears, ready to run off to war.
He's Steve's good
child
buddy.
of the 40s that American want to go take out the Nazis.
And he doesn't have a list to introduce him to the modern age. He doesn't have, Star Wars, Rocky 1, Rocky 2,
And he's trying, yeah. There's nobody to give him those things because he's a fugitive and he doesn't get to talk to anybody. But but also, I guess one of his big prevailing character traits is physically he's what Steve always wanted to be until he became the super soldier. But heart and mind, he's always trying to live up to Steve Rogers.
This is kind of like the opening of Sin City with Marv, right? Where he fights all the cops going down the stairs.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah, it's a little less stylized in that scene,
Slightly more
it
realistic.
looks a little less animated, yeah.
But now I want to watch that movie.
We can do commentary for that down the road.
Yeah.
I want to do everything I've done rewinds on, and I haven't done that yet, so.
Ouch.
So before, Eric had kind of questioned whether or not all the stuff with the robot arm made sense, that he's able to deflect bullets so easily with it and land on it and stuff. Sarah, am I right about this? He is supposed to be a super soldier in his own right, right? It's not just the robot
Yeah, I thought
arm.
so.
I never got that, and then why is the Captain America Super Soldier Serum such a big mystery? We still are, like, as late as Incredible Hulk, we're still trying to replicate that formula.
Because America didn't make him.
But Hydra did, and Hydra runs S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah.
Now, it makes more sense when we get to the other Winter Soldiers in this film, but I never took it as a given that he was a super
Yeah, I always
soldier.
thought it
I
was
thought
like
they
the
told
Russian
us
version
that.
of.
But he's not
the
Russian,
super,
though.
But he was
Hydra.
Hydra, but he has nothing to do with
but,
Russia in this version.
Yeah.
The Russians didn't do that to him.
Oh, okay.
It's not like the comics.
Yeah.
It's Zola. It's
But
Zola
he's
that
German.
does it to him. Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
so like the Hydra Nazi
And it
German
happens,
version of it.
and they grab him in Russia, if I'm remembering this correctly.
I see. I thought so.
But
I,
it wasn't Russians who did it to him.
Okay.
Is all I'm saying.
right.
Which is what it is in the
I
comics.
think that's an important distinction. Because people were really confused by the Winter Soldier title, partly because of that. And I go into this again in the rewind, but Winter Soldier in the title ends up having a lot more to do with Captain America than it actually does Bucky. The Winter Soldier versus the Summer Soldier, that old poem.
We mentioned this in the other commentary. Black Panther.
That's in our minds and nowhere else.
Black Panther's design is marvelous.
It's perfect.
It's sleek and simplistic while not being too simplistic.
And it looks amazing in every kind of lighting.
Yep.
We introduce him in broad daylight, and I know this is a weird point because Black Panther is often seen in daylight.
He's a jungle character.
Because he's a jungle character. He lives in a really hot, sunny environment.
Which would be interesting. Is that the first jungle movie that they've done? Or the first time we've gone to like a jungle in the Marvel Cinematic Universe movie?
I think so, yeah. And I've talked about this, but I'm looking forward to Black Panther for a lot of reasons, but one of them is that's yet another subgenre we haven't really dealt with yet. We get the kind of tribal film now, and that's going to be really interesting. I always really liked the idea of Wakanda as a tribal civilization, but that is also the most technologically advanced place in the world. That's so interesting.
It's real Kirby. Kirby likes the hidden civilizations that are way better.
It's
They're
real
way more advanced than us.
Egyptian-y, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, where we think of that as a primitive society, but we don't know how in the world they built the pyramids. I mean, it's really interesting.
Yeah.
But anyway, so it's a weird point to make, but even though that is the locale you usually see him, it is really interesting to see an all-black clad character after so much Batman and after so much of people saying they don't like to see Batman in the daytime, that we introduce Black Panther in the light and he looks perfect.
You can't make that costume look good in the light, and Black Panther looks amazing in the light.
And we finally have these kind of and everywhere. And it's multi-purpose. It does different things for different light sources, and we finally have these all-purpose costumes where they're not meant to only be photographed one way.
Because we're going to do a bunch of different stuff.
Because when you compare it, this is your point from before, but when you compare it to the Dark Knight suit, that suit doesn't look good in the light. It's got too much going on, but in the dark it looks fine.
And they knew that when they designed it, and so that's why in the Dark Knight you never see it in the light. They forgot that when they made Rises, but they clearly know that in Dark Knight. This is a suit that's functional but doesn't look aesthetically great, and we're going to keep it in the shadows, which works because it's Batman. This suit looks fantastic.
See, I want to say they understand that, except then their first publicity photos were shot on white, and I do not understand that.
Yep.
Even Joker looks stupid in that white light.
Yep.
I did a blog on it.
So
they said Dark Knight picture spoilers a little too early, and I just hated that whole thing. So
I haven't mentioned this yet, but...
are you going to talk about a pinch again?
No, I'm not going to talk about pinch again.
Well, you did that last time.
I know I did. No.
You sure you don't want to talk about a pinch again?
No, I haven't talked about this yet. I love Vision wearing people clothes. I think that's hilarious. I don't like how dark his design is. His red has gone to crimson, and his green has gone to gray. He is the most colorful comic book character in Ultron. He's bright red and green. And in this movie, they dull his colors down. And if it was entirely in the style of Winter Soldier, I'd get that.
Because that would be the argument on the other side, right? That some of his color
Except
palette...
that we have a giant, big, silly superhero fight at the end of this movie.
It's not silly.
And there's a lot... It's really lighthearted. He would not have been...
I'm sorry. Excuse me.
No, that's not the end.
You said the end. In my mind,
yeah, you're right.
What are you talking about?
You're right. At the end of the second act, we have a big knockdown drag out.
We sure do.
Superhero fight. He wouldn't look silly there in the bright red and green. Like, that's what that scene is. I don't know why we had that.
We didn't mute Spider-Man.
Yeah. I don't like that we dulled his colors.
Yeah,
Maybe it's supposed to be something
You're
thematic.
absolutely right.
I like that relationship.
Yeah, of course. And a lot of people weren't sure if they would go there, and it was very exciting that we did it so quickly.
Yeah, when there was one shot in Ultron,
very believable and organic, I think.
Where I thought I was like, oh,
like
that's a
he's
nod.
trying to cook. It's very organic.
But there's this one shot in Ultron I thought was just like a nod to the comics. I'm like, okay, well, I'm never gonna get that. And then immediately the next movie with them, they're starting a relationship.
See, he doesn't like a pinch in a recipe because he thinks that it's not precise enough.
Well, it's not supposed to be. That's the point.
That was the, yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry.
But it actually, there actually is.
It's not just a
definition of
pinch.
it.
It's when people give you recipes and like put some of this. And I'm like, well, I don't know how much some is.
Well, it's a pinch. It's actually there. Actually, is a specific amount that approximates the amount that you would take with your fingers.
Well, if they could design
the difference
like a
between Sarah and us is that she
device.
cooks food.
I actually have little measuring spoons that have a pinch, a smidgen, and there's one more. I can't remember what it is, but it's really funny and they're really tiny. It's great.
It's also really sad, of course, we didn't talk about this before, that they kind of end up on opposing sides. In Berlin!
Yeah, and I really of
I
all
could have
the
seen her going either way, really.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because she feels so guilty about what happened at the beginning.
of all of the
There's the number 23.
of all of the Fallout
Shows
films
up everywhere.
that I want from
And
this,
weirdly, a lot of the Marvel movies.
I really want a Scarlet Witch and Vision movie. I want to know what they look like after this movie. That's my biggest, like, weirdly, like,
I want to see more team-up movies. I think that's a great
cliffhanger
idea.
at the end of this, where like I'm like, oh, but I want to know what's happening with them.
I really like how he pauses there. I've never really thought about that. That he's trying to decide how much he wants to tell them about where he's from, and those of us that are familiar with his character, and I mean, he's so off the page. They haven't altered anything with Black Panther yet, from what little I understand of that.
He doesn't
character.
have a cape, but we ditched the cape like 20 years ago, so.
But I guess I just mean mythology and history and stuff. Like, they just took Wakanda and put it on there. There's no alteration at all so far. I think.
I don't know Black Panther enough.
Just what little I know. I read a little bit at the beginning of Ta-Nehisi Coates, and I was bored to tears, but thought the writing was really good. The dialogue writing especially, but...
They've got that epic collection of the early Black Panther stuff. I'd like to read that. And I'd like to try the Christopher Priest stuff. I've heard that's good, but I've also heard it's kind of unnecessarily non-linear.
See, I want to say that I am a lot more interested in reading Black Panther comics now, but my worry is that I will read 2 and be like, okay, I just like him in the movies. And I have that with some characters.
I had a whole joke in the first commentary about how how I was brought here. It was in the back of the car like that, but I'm not going to try and rehash jokes.
No, you should. No one will know. Just so everyone knows, 78% of the things I've said so far, I said last time, and Eric's just not as good of an actor as me. It was a lot of fun bringing you here in that thing, though, because, I know it was, I know it was real degrading, people making fun of you on the highway.
Well, and it was hard when we got to the rest stops to do the smoke breaks, because I would try and hold the cigarette, but my arm was so limp from being like this that it was real difficult. That seems real normal. Drop off big packages of power company.
The only thing I changed with that box that I brought you in is I made it like the Christopher Pike chair, where you would only communicate with a light on the front that was one flash for yes and 2 flashes for no.
Well, and the electric shocks. And you told me that's what I'd be riding here in. I thought, I was like, well, that sounds kind of funny. But you didn't tell me you were going to be giving me electric shocks.
We'd stop every now and again, and I would just put cards up in front of him. It's like a couple of wavy lines. So unfortunately, Tony really screws up in this scene.
Yep.
He had a chance to get Captain America to sign this thing, and he just couldn't keep his mouth shut.
I really like this. This is a thing that we've talked about. Where Marvel is bad at payoffs, they're really good at...
I didn't remember that line! Pregnant, no. That's not... That would be really interesting.
I also love that he says it's nobody's fault, when he clearly thinks it's his fault, and it's probably his fault.
I wonder if that ever happens. I wonder if we ever get kids for any of these characters outside Hawkeye.
Hopefully.
Because Hawkeye already has kids.
Hopefully we do not get Scarlet Witch's kids, because that's a whole kettle of worms.
Oh, is it?
They're not real. She accidentally magically made them.
Oh,
and
that's
then
right.
they're
I
taken
knew
away.
that. I'm sorry. Every time someone says Scarlet anything in these, I have a tendency to accidentally go to the other character, because there's an actress named Scarlett Johansson, and then there's a character named Scarlet Witch, and my mind goes to whichever one it isn't.
But while Marvel Studios seems to be not great at setups and payoffs across multiple films, what they are great at is looking at inconsistencies and making a through line and a pattern, whether it was intended or not, because I can never tell sometimes. But when you go from Iron Man 3 to Age of Ultron to this, it seems like a really inconsistent character because he keeps quitting being a superhero, and they made that his character.
Yeah.
He can't quit. He kind of wants to, but he doesn't actually want to. And so he just keeps doing it, and that has become part of him now.
And isn't that fascinating, given what the point of Ultron was? Mm-hmm. It says, isn't the point so we can go home? Which makes that weirdly selfless on his part. Like, even though...
Because he doesn't actually want to go
home. He doesn't realize it, but at least subconsciously, he's not doing that for him. He's doing that for everybody else. He's doing that for the team. And even if he was able to put a sentinel at every corner of the earth to protect us all, and that worked, he would still be putting that suit on.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, this scene ends up being really, really important because you had to have that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh, man, if you just hadn't said that, he would have signed it already. You just hadn't mentioned it. Then when you did bring up Wanda, you go, you already signed it.
That was interesting phrasing. Interesting phrasing. He said, every time I think...
magic word.
You didn't say the magic word.
Every time I think you see things the right way. That's interesting phrasing in Captain America's part.
Good point. Because this is where that black and white thinking is finally getting him into hot water. Because
from this point forward, and even kind of before this, his entire motivation is Bucky. It's not about the issue. It's about his friend, and he's...
Yeah, but
it is still about the issue. Like,
they were just gonna shoot him based on... we talked over the part where...
He's a decades-old assassin!
Yeah, but they have no real evidence that he did that. And they were just going to shoot him on sight, and then they take him away, and Captain America's like, okay, so he gets a lawyer, right? And they're like, lawyer, you're funny.
Alright, this one's minor, but she turns the audio on. It's silent, says restricted, and she turns the audio on. That one's minor, but continuing to do things that would get her in trouble.
I don't know what authority she has.
Yeah, I don't
know about that one, honestly.
She looks around to see if anybody's watching. She's like looking to make sure that no one's paying attention.
Yeah, but aren't they all in the room with her? Like, they would be hearing it too, right?
Well, they're in like this closed glass room.
I wasn't paying real close attention to that part of it. Because I was talking about something and now I can't remember what it was.
So this is a pet peeve of mine in subtitles in general. When they're speaking a foreign language, just put the foreign language at the bottom of the screen so I can see what it is. Why do they have to say, speaking German, speaking Spanish? Just put it down there. Tell me what they're saying.
I can't read other languages, so I never thought of that.
Well, I can. It'd be really nice if... And sometimes, a lot of times in these kind of movies, they're muttered or more muttered. Mm-hmm. And so you can hear it if you're really paying attention, but it'd be nice to actually get it on there.
I think it's a consistency issue on the point of the subtitle makers, where you'll wonder if you can't actually hear what's being said, why all of a sudden you have to read the foreign language, because usually we dub or we subtitle English foreign language, so you'd almost have to put both up. Mm-hmm. That's why they do that, is because that's kind of confusing to people. Mm-hmm. What gets really interesting is when you go back and you look at the Wolverine, where there are a whole bunch of Japanese exchanges that aren't subtitled at all.
Yeah.
And I think in that, with this, I gotta go back and look at the subtitles. I don't know if they put that up or if they just don't put anything up.
Yeah.
I forget, but that is kind of a consistency.
We talked over it, but there's a real contrived scene here.
Sorry, Paul had something to say. Okay,
yeah.
he's talking.
There's a real contrived scene here that's the equivalent of the Jeff Goldblum.
Did you know Electro was in this movie?
Give them a cold bit, where they have this. The three characters, it's Falcon, Captain America, and Sharon Carter, have this like talk through of flushing out. Why would somebody release that picture? Well, to flush him out, to get him. I'm like, yeah, but that doesn't mean that they would get him. That means that we would get him. And then they all look up at the screen, and then we cut into the room and we pan up, and we find out it's Zemo. At the same moment, for some reason, they all immediately know that the interrogator must be the person that engineered all this.
Yeah,
it's really
that is a massive movie trope. We do that kind of thing all the time. That reminds me of all the moments we do this especially on TV, where whether you believe it or not, the moment that the protagonist figures out who the bad guy is, that's the precise moment that person executes their master plan.
Mm. Rusted is one of the words. That's a weird word to put there. Unless it's fear of his arm rusting or something.
Yeah. All of these words are potentially really interesting. I don't know if he got thrown off of specifically a freight car.
Mm. It was some kind of train.
But it was some kind of train. One, he's all alone. I mean, you can... I have a tendency to read into things, but to try to find the significance in a lot of things like that. But I don't know that those were words drawn out of a hat, is all I'm saying. we even know specifically the date.
Was it December 6th?
December 16th.
16th. I was born. Not that day, but I was already born.
So you haven't talked about Zemo at all.
I have not talked about Zemo at all. This is a big scene where he should take his face off. It should be a mask.
No!
No, you're right thematically, but
Yeah,
I don't care.
So have you seen Baron Zemo in the comics?
No.
He's got the coolest mask anyone's ever had.
Purple?
It's purple.
He has this purple mask, and Eric wanted really badly for him to have that mask in this movie, and it wouldn't make sense here.
No, the movie they made, it would not
because
make
it's
sense.
really important that he's just a regular person. Yeah, I mean, he's an ex-soldier, so I mean, he has skills, but he's a regular person with a family, and he could become that character. He could end up with that down the road if we brought him back. And we had a whole conversation about whether or not we thought that would happen. Because I could really see them kind of forgetting about it. Or taking him out in one scene at the beginning again.
He's
I guess
so
that could
deliberately
happen.
placed at the end of this movie. I want to believe they have some kind of plan for him. My big hope is that
when we get more cosmic, it's going to be interesting to see how we pull it back.
Yeah, I'm hoping that he gathers the remaining supervillains from these films together and does like a Masters of Evil thing. I think that could be a cool... we haven't done that yet in these movies. We haven't had a group of villains yet. And I think that could be a cool...
I was going to ask you if you
thought Infinity War is like huge and cosmic, it could be another big movie, but it's toned down is a bunch of supervillains.
And I
hope
think
that's
the
where
place to do that would be like a Falcon Cap movie. I really like the idea of that kind of thing happening. It's going to be interesting to see how long Steve is out of the suit.
Mm. I'm telling you, man, whatever happens with Captain America will be at the end. We will have it by the end of Infinity War, whether he's back or it's Falcon Cap or Bucky's Cap, and we'll buy it completely because that's what they do. Where it's like, well, this is going to take a couple of movies, and then we get the next movie, and it's just, oh well, I guess we finished all of those plot lines, and it seems completely. I completely buy that they got there.
You'll walk in going, "This is going to be rushed," and then you leave going, "No, organic, totally works." Yeah. The big twist will be all three of them emerge as Captain America.
Yeah.
It's a triad. They must all join forces to magically create Captain America.
But yeah, I really like Zemo in this movie. I think he should be in the movie more. I think the performance is phenomenal, and I like that he is just a guy that was affected by superhero action.
Did he have any kind of an impact on you?
On me?
Mm-hmm.
I thought the ending was a little bit of a letdown, honestly. The first time I saw it, where I just thought it was weird that it was
what his master plan was?
Random guy who was just out to get revenge because of his family.
But that's what I like about him, is that he's just some guy who's been affected by this.
But it kind of seemed like a bait and switch, where...
I think it's supposed to be, and we've talked about...
And Eric used that exact phrase, should we wait till we get to...
We'll wait till we get to the whole thing.
The Winter Soldier's bit, no,
because
they try to play it like it's way bigger than it is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's supposed to be a twist. This guy doesn't have a big master plan, he just wants them to suffer and disband.
The problem is, it's still... in my mind, a little too much of a master plan. It's weird that you would think of try to force these people to fight each other. That's my whole thing. I'm in the middle of you guys. I like his motivation. I like the idea that it's just a guy, because thematically that plays really well into what the legislation is about and oversight and all of that, regardless of where you fall on that whole issue. But does everything, we do this in so many movies, and this handles it better than a lot of things have, but does everything have to be all totally orchestrated by somebody behind the scenes? You know, does the very piece of legislation have to be orchestrated by a guy behind the scenes like that? I'm not saying he expected that to happen, but like trying to force them to fight each other, really that's the first thing you think of? And did it have to be that elaborate? Couldn't you just like send Tony Stark the information about his parents in the mail so he would fly off and go punch Captain America in the face? Mm-hmm. Why did it have to be this complicated?
Yeah. I think what's interesting
That's what I resist about it.
And when he has a speech at the end, he says he would never try to fight them. More powerful people than him have tried. I think it's interesting that his first thought is, and this is, I think, again, reinforcing the...
Oh, I forgot about that part of
the
it.
collateral damage ground view that he's supposed to represent of just someone affected by them. His first thought is, these are the most powerful people on the planet, and no one can stop them except for themselves. It has to be them attacking each other, because who else could stand up to this force?
And the point that they might start creating a lot more problems than they're solving. So the problem is the power. And of course, we haven't had a lot of examples of that yet. I like that we're not yet in a place where all of the problems are caused by superheroes or ex-superheroes, or that we do still have exterior threats where superheroes feel necessary, and we're not going over that old gem over and over and over again like we tend to with Batman.
Mm-hmm. And I like that he doesn't have any kind of personal connection to any of these characters. That's often what we do with the villains is, oh, well, they were snubbed by Captain America back in, whenever. Or they always have a personal connection to someone. I like that his connection is just that there isn't a personal connection. You guys did something, and my family died.
I do think Bucky's maybe a little bit more compelling than you do, just because...
I don't think he's not compelling at all, but I don't have a sense of him as a person. I don't know what his personality is, and we start to see it a little bit at the end when he's joking with Steve.
That's because he hasn't had a chance for it to emerge yet. I think, and a lot of people felt the way you do, and I think it's just because we had a movie called Winter Soldier, and he's
brainwashed the whole movie.
Just now beginning to sort of break out of his brainwashing by the end of that movie, but only just so, and only if you stay through the credits to see that. I mean, there's some of it going on because he saves Captain America, but you don't see even a glimmer of his personality.
And I think you would have gotten more of that if this was a Captain America movie. I think you would have had more time with Bucky. He would have gotten to Bucky earlier, and they would have been together for more of it.
I just like how tragic he is. I like that he still is a slave to that, and thought that maybe he had gotten past it, or had hoped that he had, and then somebody knows what buttons to push, and he still has that programming. He's still a computer program.
Okay, so yeah, they're injecting them with something that Stark had in his thing, so that must be something that Stark came up with trying to resemble the super soldier serum. Because that's why he goes there and kills the Starks, is in Howard Stark's briefcase was whatever they're injecting into them.
So that is a really good point you're making.
But that would suggest that Winter Soldier does not have that. Because these are after him because he went and killed them.
But if he was the first, he was the first one.
Right. And they don't have that serum. He goes and kills Howard Stark to get that serum to make these Winter Soldiers.
But how would he be able to fight them?
Because he's a robot arm.
I don't think it's just the robot arm.
And they're significantly stronger than he is. I think
they might just have a better serum than he does. Like they might have.
But they stole it from Howard Stark.
Right, but
they weren't working on a serum, or it doesn't seem like they were working on a serum.
Well, how do you know that?
Because they just stole his and injected it into them.
No, I'm talking about way back when they made Winter Soldier. There could have been a serum then.
I don't, but we never see it.
It could have been some version of whatever. There's a lot of stuff we see so fast in Winter Soldier, I don't know if you're right about that. But I thought it was maybe some updated version of what Red Skull did to himself.
Red Skull didn't do anything to himself.
Oh, he didn't?
No, the doctor that made Captain America did that to Red Skull. Remember?
Oh, that's right.
But he just said they're like you but worse, suggesting that he's not like Steve.
No, he said, did they turn out like you? And he said worse.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they were talking to him at that point. That wasn't him discussing Steve Rogers. I also really like Eric. I had forgotten about this with the Ant-Man thing, because I love how he's used in this.
Mm-hmm.
I like that cameo pays off into this.
And we'll never talk about it again.
What do you mean?
That's what Falcon says to him.
Yeah. So I do kind of wish that we did a little more with Ross here, because this could kind of be anybody.
Well, and it's the shared universe thing where, like, it could be anybody, and I think it was written as anybody, and they're like, well, what if it was General Ross?
Yeah, and that's nice.
We have a general sitting around, let's use him.
Because Incredible Hulk has not mattered at all, and it's nice to finally have that, because at least I have more of a sense that is canonical. Because there's very little in that movie that matters to anything.
Yeah, still waiting on the leader.
Yep. Just clock's ticking on that guy. He's already been in another movie nobody pays attention to or likes since then, as with Fan-Tastic, as another villain that doesn't get to become that villain.
And it's another Abomination is one of the biggest supervillains that they have sitting in the rafters right now.
Yeah,
he's maybe the biggest one that has survived their movie.
Yeah, and I think Queens. And I kind of forget that that's him sometimes, or that that he survived that.
We now interrupt your movie for a commercial for another movie.
As well written as all of this is, I'm so with you on that. It does just stop.
So that we can introduce Spider-Man. And it's...
Yeah, but I didn't think this was nearly as jarring as a lot of the Avengers stuff early on in the Marvel movies, where every time you get a movie, it's just like blatantly, there's an Avengers movie coming up. This is preparing for that.
But even the Hawkeye thing in Thor is like 30 seconds. Like, this is like a 5 to 8
Iron Man 2.
This is fun. This actually has to do with the plot. It pays off later. It's more integrated into the movie. I like it. It doesn't feel like there's a Spider-Man movie, you should watch it.
Yeah,
it feels like...
Yeah, I don't think he needs to be in this movie at all.
It stops everything to introduce that character, and it finds the most natural way possible to force him in, but he's still forced in. We didn't talk about this the last time.
Because it's not about the plot.
Nobody's going to do this.
It's
about the plot in the sense that Tony Stark needs soldiers, but that's it. It thematically is relevant when he starts talking about...
Something's happening.
It just paused.
Oh, it just randomly paused? Okay, sorry folks. Give us a second. So, our timestamp right now is at 1:18:03, and now it started again. Well, that's weird.
Weird.
Okay, sorry folks. I may go back and try to fix that. But anyway...
Well, it'll be around 1:18 in the video.
Yeah.
Well, probably a little bit earlier than that, or a little bit
later than that, because we had preamble, yeah. We didn't talk about this in the version that nobody gets to hear, but my big issue with this in the theater was, really, Tony's gonna go to a 16-year-old kid in high school? I want to know what the Accords say. I have a really hard time buying that is legal with the legislation they just signed.
I still think it makes more sense to get Jessica Jones or Luke Cage or Daredevil.
He doesn't necessarily know about any of those people, but I guess Devil in Hell's Kitchen.
Yeah, nobody can stop saying Devil in Hell's Kitchen. Those
right,
Netflix
but we don't
shows.
know that he has superpowers. He could just be a guy in a costume.
But you don't know that about Spider-Man either.
Like, well, maybe he
could be entirely tech-based, which might be why he would go to him.
Right, but maybe he can't even find Daredevil. Jessica Jones, sure.
Jessica Jones is in the phone book.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jessica Jones is my big pick. If it was going to cross over, she should be this character.
No, that's completely understandable. But forgetting the TV shows, because so far they're not relevant to this stuff. They're not connected. They will be eventually, hopefully. There's been talk that they might get mentions in the sequel to Homecoming, and they should, because he's in Queens. But forgetting all of that, I have a real hard time buying that he would do this.
Yeah, given that everything is about accountability and affecting other people, you would go to a kid.
That you're immediately adding a potential liability into this whole thing, I think. And he does decide it's a mistake.
And I don't...
Where he's like, okay, I almost got you killed, get out of here?
And I don't know what...
But what did you think was going to happen?
But that's Tony Stark. I mean, he just kind of has an idea, he goes for it, he pulls the trigger, and then he regrets it later.
But not in this movie.
Yeah.
He's more methodical in this movie.
And
he's
he
thinking ahead.
has
He's
grown since the
that.
last time we saw him. Yeah, that is something of a regression. Again, for the sake of introducing this character, because we don't trust it enough to just give it its own movie, because this is the second time we've rebooted. A lot of this is business.
Well,
very, very much business.
And I don't.
And again, handled as
well as it could be.
As
they get this character.
It's very impressive. Oh, and we love his pizza shirt.
Yes, we will.
The Vitruvian Manus pizza. It's awesome. I want that shirt.
And it really feels like this script was done and they were almost ready to shoot, and then they're like, "Oh, by the way, can you put Spider-Man in it? Yeah, we'll put a scene here, and we'll throw some scenes in the action scene." Because tactically, he doesn't add anything to that other than he steals Captain America's shield at the beginning. Like, I don't know what... He's real impressed by the webbing, but, like, it doesn't add anything to the fight from a strategical setting up standpoint.
Now, I will say that one thing I like about introducing other characters in this, I mean, we only do it with one, but is the Vision speech, where he's talking about there are more of these people now, and it does make sense to go seek them out and to kind of deal with the consequences of involving them in this stuff. I like that.
Too. I mean, from the other side.
Right. But I'm just saying, introducing a character we've not seen yet into this is a good idea because of that.
Avengers.
When we get to Homecoming, this is going to look like a prologue for that movie.
Yeah.
Because this relationship is clearly the foundation for that film.
And this will also become
You haven't seen the new trailer, but, I mean, he's all over it.
This will also become a weird sore spot, I think, retroactively, if Spider-Man leaves after the Homecoming sequel.
Yeah, and I still don't think that's going to happen.
I hope it doesn't, but if it does, it's going to be weird, because you can kind of avoid this Spider-Man.
When the contract is up, Sony is going to rip Spider-Man out of this universe.
Oh.
They have a 6-movie contract, and after Homecoming 2, and whatever the last appearance he's supposed to be in is, that because that makes 6 movies, they're going to rip him out.
Oh. That sucks.
He just rises up out of the floor.
We just did a whole show on that the other day.
It was a mere, like, 2 hour and 40 minute video.
No, it wasn't. It was 1 hour 20. So, standard length for a speculation cast. That's what we call them now, speculation cast. Someone left a comment on that the first time we used that word and said that's the new class at Hogwarts, speculation casting.
Yes.
I like Hawkeye in this. I like him even more when we get to the prison. I think he's become a fully realized character by the time we get to the prison. Like, I understand completely who Clint Barton is in the cinematic universe and where he's coming from.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah, but they made a lot of headway in Age of Ultron.
No, and I love him in Age of Ultron, but like I understand his worldview at the end of this film.
I was not a Hawkeye fan before these movies, and now I'm a big Hawkeye fan.
Don't go read the comics, he's not like this at all.
Aw. Okay, well then I'll just keep watching these movies over and over again.
No, he's closer to early Tony Stark in the comics. He's the wisecracker, he doesn't like authority.
Most of the reinventions have been real solid.
Mm-hmm. No, I won't say I like cinematic Hawkeye more than comic book Clint Barton, but
yeah,
it's a valid...
I don't know if you would say that about Tony Stark even, though.
No, I don't like movie Tony Stark more than comic Tony Stark.
But most people do, and that's the point I'm making.
Yeah, I mean, I have that with Captain America, and I guess Black Panther, but that's not fair because I haven't read enough Black Panther.
I don't know that he's not the same character.
Yeah, I have no idea.
She ruined the gym.
She ruined the whole building. That's the one shot we're seeing in 3D, I assume.
Now that they've signed the Accords, and that's I'm assuming a government building, she's going to owe them a lot of money.
No. It's
I love that.
It's a Stark building. We know it's a Stark building. Because Ant-Man tells us. Because remember, they're going to go to that Stark building, and he's like, you said it's just a Stark facility, right?
I wasn't sure if that changed, though.
I don't think so. Because they're privately funded. They're not a government thing.
Yeah, but again, I don't know what's in that legislation.
Oh, right.
This is the point I'm trying to make.
This is the final straw. She is now a fugitive.
It is probably still a private entity in conjunction with the government. I imagine that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
That joke plays. Most of the humor plays, I think. There's
everything Falcon plays.
Yeah, everything, every time. And it is amazing how much screen time he gets, and I think he feels more present because we keep cutting to him to do something amusing and then cutting back away from it. And that could be obnoxious. It's handled so well.
And it's amazing how well him and Winter Soldier play, given that they get like 2 minutes of screen time together total.
Yeah.
Because they're just going to do a head nod here, and it's hilarious and great.
Yeah, the whole point of this scene is actually developing chemistry between Winter Soldier and Falcon.
Yeah, no, that makes way more sense.
We're watching them make out just so that we can time the humor
Because
whenever we go back.
They clearly don't have any, but these two do.
But they've got chemistry. I watched that movie. I'd watch the Winter Soldier Falcon movie. That sounds great.
The Falcon anybody movie. Falcon War Machine, Falcon Iron Man,
Spider-Man,
Falcon Ant-Man.
He goes with anybody, yeah.
Oh, Falcon Spider-Man would be great.
Yeah. Yep, Falcon is the water of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Just add Falcon.
I don't know what that is. He says I owe a debt. I don't know what the debt is. Oh, I guess it's to her.
Yeah.
Yay.
So this was Sarah's introduction to this character. And I imagine just based on that, I mean, if you had seen Ant-Man first, I'm sure you would immediately fall in love with this guy.
Yeah.
But
this helped. This was great.
Yeah, characters like this are a real threat to my marriage. Sarah falls in love with these people. But
I believe that he does not know who she is. I don't mean the actor. I mean, I don't think Scott Lang knows who Scarlet Witch is. He's just like, I know you too. You're great.
You're great. I imagine after seeing your experience with that, that with seeing this first and then going back to Ant-Man, that a lot of people would probably like that movie a little better if they had been introduced to him in this movie first.
Yeah.
And that's hard to say because I didn't have that and you didn't have what I had, so it's hard to say, but...
Yeah, but it's hard to dislike Giant Man, and so to know like both extremes of the suit going into the Ant-Man movie, plus this guy's great lines all through this.
Yeah, that's a good point. Knowing how far
you might
they'll
expect
take it,
Giant Man in Ant-Man going backwards.
or you might expect if you watched Ant-Man first that you couldn't be sure that they would take it full tilt. And so you're kind of suspicious of it, but if you see is that the point you're making? That if you see Giant Man first, you go back to Ant-Man, you're like, this is going to be fun. You're more excited to go see Ant-Man, because you know, even if they don't go that far in that movie, you know that they're willing to do that crazy stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know why every kid wouldn't want to be Black Panther for Halloween.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's an amazing costume.
Well, and I mean, they did sell a Black Panther costume.
They did, and they look good.
Yeah.
There are some really good ones. There are times where I wish I was a kid today because the Halloween costumes are so much better than they were when I was a kid.
Much better.
A lot of toys are cooler than they were when I was a kid. There are pockets where they're not, but
they do unfortunately still do.
Things.
Not still do, because they didn't have these when I was a kid. This came out somewhere in the late 90s, early 2000s. The fake muscles on the kids' costumes, those never look good.
They still do that. You had a tonal inconsistency issue with that.
Yeah, no, it's not there.
That's jarring.
It's not there. I mean, that's a little jarring. This whole thing, and then he is just going to turn and resume the dramatic conversations he's having. And it's a weird segue, too. Yeah, see here. We're in a different movie now. It's real weird.
And it's maybe just a timing issue. If we'd had a few seconds, maybe it would work.
Yeah.
If we just have a minute. Like, you could have an awkward moment where Spider-Man just goes, no, continue. Maybe that's what I would have done.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. That is a place, and I'm suspicious of it, where it does feel like this scene was written already, and we went back and we intercut that in. Speaking from experience, having done that myself with things before, I know exactly what that looks like. Where in revision you go, you know what, this needs to be here. A lot of people feel like all this goes on too long. It is so much fun.
Oh, yeah.
I think it can be cut down.
And I understand why it's so playful, besides just being a summer blockbuster and trying to entertain the audience in the middle of a really heavy piece.
I never thought I wanted a Civil War movie, ever, but this whole action scene totally sold it to me.
Yeah, Sarah hates superheroes fighting superheroes.
Yeah.
But don't you also hate superheroes doing anything other than saving people?
Yeah. I mean, I can be persuaded on occasion, but...
Sarah wants a much simpler world, really. I mean, it's amazing how much you like this movie, given that you don't like politics in your superhero stuff.
Yeah.
And you've called this the best Marvel movie.
It is. But I know that Captain America is completely right. That's awesome.
Spider-Man... The first person we see Spider-Man fight is Winter Soldier. That is the best thing. He's so in over his head, he's not ready for any of this. I love that.
Yeah. And trying to read him his rights. It's just great.
It's hilarious.
We talked about how they underutilize Wanda in this fight because she's too powerful for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So she's only going to show up and help other heroes out. She's never going to fight anyone because she's too powerful for anyone to
fight. And they don't find a way to incapacitate her or get her out of
the way.
No,
we just don't use
doesn't
her
show up for a while and then pops back in the fight.
Yeah.
Okay,
what have you been doing?
I agree with you, but I also just thought of a possible explanation.
Sorry, go ahead. The car is falling down. Does that remind you of the Fate of the Furious trailer just a little bit? Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so she was only brought here reluctantly, and she's also worried about her powers from the beginning of the movie, so it could be that she's deliberately holding back.
No, because she's just not shown. Like, she'll show up and, like, help someone, and then we just won't see her for 2 minutes while we cut around to every other character.
Right.
But she's just suggesting that what she's doing is holding back. But they could cut to her, standing back, not using her powers.
It's just a possible theory. I did not think of that until just now. I've always thought that was weird before, though.
We did a really good job here, I think, of getting so much of Peter Parker's personality and character traits in what little he's here. Like, we already got more science-y talk and stuff than is in an entire, singular Raimi film. Oh yeah, that I hate you line is great. So it was a lot of fun watching Sarah see this because since she hadn't seen Ant-Man, she didn't know he could do any of this stuff. Sarah was enthralled with this.
Is that reversed from what you would think it would be? He throws the disc and then has Cap throw the truck. Wouldn't you usually throw the normal thing and then the thing that makes it big or small? And if
I guess it doesn't make a difference.
And if you're giving Captain America something to throw with precision, wouldn't you want it to be disc shaped?
It could be that one of them is more accurate to throw.
This is a little different than this, though.
One of those could be more.
I would have seen it.
Easier to throw more accurately.
Captain America, I got a new shield for you.
So for all intents and purposes, the fight can start here.
But then you'd miss out on all the cool stuff.
Yeah, there's cool stuff, but we restarted the fight. And I have a whole thing about Hawkeye. They don't know how to use an archer. He needs to stand back and provide cover like an archer. And he is going to be in the front of the line.
The real reason this is here, of course, is trailer fodder and,
But they just start your fight with this.
And stuff. But the point I was going to make is they're all fighting in different places and then they all converge in this one place, so they line up. But yeah,
Hawkeye's in the front! Why? He's an archer. It's not what you do. They don't understand how archery works. Or just non-melee combatants, because they keep doing it with Iron Man, too. He should just fly around and shoot people. That's what I would do.
Yeah, Eric, it's your standard superhero up against superhero fight from comic books where we want to see the pair-ups. It's really amalgam that way, right? I mean, that's why we do that. We get to pair some of them off, and then we get to see them all go up against each other at one time. And, of course, we're pairing them off again right now because they're not going to play dirty pool. They're not going to gang up on each other because... I mean, I said earlier, I like Civil War as a concept happening this early. I also like it for the sake of the Marvel Cinematic Universe happening this late. It's... A lot of these characters already have a history and a rapport with each other, and that's really well displayed here, I think. That these people aren't trying to kill each other. Mm-hmm. There's a little bit of, there's quite a lot actually, of playfulness about this, because many of these people know each other and like each other, and they're just on opposite sides of an issue. And because they're superheroes, and we need fights in superhero movies, they're going to deal with those issues by punching each other in the face.
Mm-hmm.
It still feels like a more natural fight to me, Eric, than the one in Avengers.
No,
than the
anything.
Cap Iron
but the
Man.
one in Avengers is not 10 minutes long. I feel like I like all of this. I think it's fun. I need it. I think it should be shorter. I think it could be a tighter
It
film.
should be longer. It should be half the movie.
I'm going to split the middle and say 12 minutes is okay.
And it's also, given what happens to Roy at the end of this, it's weird that we end this big, silly funness with a real dramatic beat.
Not in this movie, though. Because the way it's supposed to feel is everything comes crashing down.
See, Spider-Man just summed up my entire...
This is a bad idea on both sides. This can only end in tears, even though it begins with laughter, is the way it's supposed to play.
Spider-Man just summed up my entire complaint with Sharon Carter's speech. You're wrong, you think you're right, that makes you dangerous. That's the problem with Sharon Carter's speech.
You just want that.
I just want that guy in the back of. I just want Peter Parker in the back of the funeral, and just, you're wrong. You think you're right. Makes you dangerous.
I was just gonna say, you want that argument to just keep going back and forth. No, you think you're right, and that makes you dangerous.
No, because,
I can say that too. We're on opposing sides of an argument.
Because Tony's not.
We both have valuable points, and we can't find common ground. How is what you're saying not something I can easily throw back at you?
Because Tony's not as short-sighted as Captain America, Black and White. He is conflicted about his decision and is trying to do the best he can with what's been thrown at them. And Captain America's just no.
Yeah, and what's interesting about that is that has been both of them throughout, and this time, arguably, Captain America is either not in the right or not as much in the right, depending on where you land. Because, again, when they get to the end, I'm not sure who I side with, and that's the point. So, and that's what the movie is hoping to do, I think. And with me, it succeeds at that. Not with Sarah, because Sarah looks at everything much more black and white than I do. But the deal is, Iron Man always changes and grows. And Captain America, until this point, doesn't have to. And by the end of this, he finally has had an opportunity for change and gone against it and realized maybe he should have, and it changes him in some way. Where Iron Man has come to is that he's got, I would argue, Eric, that Iron Man has gotten used to this. He's gotten used to, I'm in the wrong a lot, I have to understand my error and move forward, and so he just, it's weird because he's such a confident guy, but he assumes that he might be wrong a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And he wants Captain America to understand that he could be wrong too.
There's a Giant Man Build-A-Figure.
Oh, that's awesome.
Somebody brought in like a bunch of toys. They just had the head. The eyes on the Build-A-Figure are perfect because they are the it's that look on his eyes.
That's awesome.
I also think that it should end with Giant Man. that should be the distraction that Cap uses to get away with Bucky.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's the distraction he takes to go get the jet, but I guess
like the sequence is still going. I feel like
that is absolutely one of the most satisfying things I've ever experienced in a superhero movie. When he turns into Giant Man, nobody expected it. They were really smart to not put it in the trailers, and not telegraph it.
I like this a lot. Because he is not here for the squabbling. He is here to kill Winter Soldier.
Yeah, and I like that some of these people are here for different reasons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's not really on Tony's side. He doesn't have a weigh-in on the political debate. He is here to get Winter Soldier, and Captain America is standing in the way of it.
I mean, obviously, in supporting his country, he agreed with the legislation. He was there with his father to sign it. Right?
I think so. I'm not sure if that's what his father was talking about at all. I'm pretty
sure it was. Yeah, because they were talking about the historic event, and...
Okay.
There were several world leaders there to sign it, and they're from Wakanda, and he was one of them, so they were there representing Wakanda. But yeah, this is something I wanted to make sure and bring up from the previous conversation we had, Eric. The idea that this gets as close as it possibly could have to recapturing that feeling we had with Avengers in bringing those...
This is the dodgy CGI scene. Sorry.
Oh, yes, it is. Yeah, that's... Winter Soldier had one at the beginning and one at the end, and this movie has one in the middle, and there's one a little bit earlier, and there's one at the end. Yeah, that's pretty rough. And it looks the same kind of dodgy that the stuff in the hangar in S.H.I.E.L.D. looked like at the beginning of Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
But yeah, the idea that... The idea that in Avengers we were so excited to see all those characters finally come together, and it captured this comic book team event feel that we never thought we'd get on screen, and you couldn't recreate that. And people complained about that with Age of Ultron, that it couldn't be recreated. And this movie gets as close as you possibly could.
Well, because they do the next thing, which is, and then what if they all fought each other?
But for me, it wasn't that they fought each other so much as it was just bringing in even more of these characters that had not yet met.
Well, but I think selling it, that's how you sell this as.
That's absolutely right.
Which is why it's actually an Avengers movie, or another reason it's actually an Avengers movie is.
Yeah.
It is the next movie after Avengers to have that thing.
Yeah, but I'm not just talking about advertising. How it made me feel in the theater. That as much as anything ever. Could it recapture that? Although I think Infinity War has the potential to do that again.
Because there's 4,000 characters in that movie,
right? Yeah, and we
know about.
We haven't had the big cosmic thing yet. We haven't had some of those mind-bending ideas, the multiverse breaking ideas yet. And I'm hoping they go that far in that movie. We don't really know how what scale that will be on.
So Black Widow's turn here makes no sense and will never be adequately explained. So she may as well just have turned at the beginning and been the one that gives.
There it is again.
Captain Falcon. Yep.
Still doesn't look good.
Captain Falcon and stuff. But interestingly, that shot of Black Panther standing up is basically exactly the concept art we saw for Black Panther.
Oh, interesting.
It is the same background. Maybe they use that concept art picture for the background in that scene.
And we're about to have an exchange with Black Widow and Iron Man that just does not follow.
No, but it looks like it doesn't look like anything's cut out of that conversation. The way it's cut. But it doesn't make sense.
But I think something might have been on paper before they shot it.
That might be.
It feels real cut down. That's what I meant when I've said that before. Is that it feels like it was really hobbled or really cut to smithereens before they shot it.
Based on what she says, it almost feels like that conversation was supposed to take place with Captain America. But we'll get there.
Interesting. Yeah, we'll get there.
Well, no, I don't mean that actually. I just mean the argument that she's using doesn't apply to Tony in this film, but it does apply to Cap in this film.
So I don't feel this way as much now. In the theater, I kind of thought maybe they should have let Rhodey die in this movie just because it's called Civil War. It's a war and nobody dies, but it's kind of more like a big battle. it's not a civil war in the same way it is in the comics, because these heroes don't really go to war with each other. It's more of a it's more of an ideological war, really. And so maybe in that sense, it's kind of okay that doesn't happen. And
they're all friends, not trying to kill each other, and even in an accident, I think it would make the ending of this movie even darker than it already is. Although, if Rhodey died, I think you'd have less complaints with the ending. If that was on top of everything,
I would buy Tony freaking out the way he does more than I do. Because that is one of my big issues with this movie. And we'll get there, but like I buy him going half-cocked on a Cap in a way I don't buy him going off on Winter Soldier. I almost feel like you'd need more time to process it. Like, you wouldn't need to necessarily process Captain America kept this from me as much as you would the Winter Soldier bit of it. I just feel like there's two guys in that room. There's one that you just go to town on and you almost forget the other one's even there, I would think. And that's my issue with it. So now when we get there, I'll have nothing to talk about. Apollo, are you enjoying this movie? He's asleep, isn't he?
He's been asleep this whole time.
Yeah.
There's one place where he was trying to get a word in edgewise, and we didn't let him, so he's like, screw it, he just took a nap. Or went to bed. I mean, it's getting late, you know. See, if Tony Stark was here right now, this would be a very different ending.
Oh, you just say, yeah. See? Even he admits it. Repulsive.
Did you say Coulson?
I said repulsive.
No, I didn't Coulson. I was like, what?
To the face.
What does that have to do with anything? Let's just name other characters who have died. Coulson. Alright, moving right along.
There's more characters that have died than that. They're all bad guys, but they're dead.
He missed. He never misses.
And now a reenactment of Stillwell's death.
It's Sitwell.
Did I say Stillwell?
Yeah.
That's because I've been working on 90s Spider-Man and this character and that named Stillwell. Yeah, that's Sitwell. And I made pun jokes about both of them.
Yeah, this is the conversation where she's...
Yeah, watch this.
She's debunking Captain America's argument,
She's
but
gonna
not
say
talking
a thing
to Tony Stark.
that does not remotely follow from what Tony says. And I'm with you, I don't buy her turn.
Not based on this as the explanation.
The argument is basically just she's a double agent and that's what she does. From him, anyway. Look at that. What does that have to do with anything he just said?
And it has nothing to do with his point in the movie. Like,
and the
ego
point
has nothing. If anything, his entire position is putting his ego in check and compromising.
Yeah, and that everything he does is in the extremes, so that might be also dangerous potential. That's the argument.
Captain America's the guy running on ego through this whole movie because it's my friend and I know what's best.
But yeah, explain that to me. She says, he says, it must be hard to drop that double agent thing. She says, ego, ego, ego. Those two things do not follow. What is she talking about?
I know one of your personality flaws, so I'm just going to throw it at you.
Yeah, exactly.
It could be, well,
I don't
where
I don't have an
throwing
argument.
a personality flaw at her, so she's throwing a personality flaw back. Or
I
don't get it otherwise.
Yeah, except that what he says makes some sort of sense.
But it's all...
Because you can't explain why exactly she flipped.
Yeah, because it could also just be a low blow.
She's coming from the point of view that
but I don't know that the
writers
know that in that scene is my issue with it.
She's coming from the point of view, in saying that she was on his side from the beginning and still is more on his side, but she felt in that moment like she had to let Cap go. And so he's now knocking her down, saying, "Oh
like
yeah,
she flipped sides." I didn't flip sides. I did what. That's interesting. I did what Captain America would do in the moment. I let my conscience be my guide. Mm-hmm. And I didn't just go with whatever the rules are. I wasn't just following orders.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. But what she says still does not follow.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't say what you just said.
Right. Well.
She just goes, "You're mean."
Yeah.
I missed it. Do we get a location for this? Do we never know where this is? Because we know when this was at the beginning of the movie, but do we get a location?
I think, yeah. I think it... Well, maybe I don't know. No, I thought we did, but I can't remember now. Which is crazy, because it's always so big.
So this is a thing we talked about in the last commentary of this movie we did.
Mm-hmm. It's in my head.
Is that the whole other Winter Soldiers thing, I think, is... what's the word?
A red herring?
No, not that's a red herring. It's not important, or it's not built up enough to be a red herring.
Yes.
By the time you get to this point,
I forgot about it.
Yeah.
I forgot that was even in there.
Yeah, and I like it. Once I've seen this movie like 3 or 4 times, like, I know what they're doing. I think I like it.
But you need, like, a 4th viewing.
But just a general audience going to this movie, by the time we've gotten to this, they've forgotten about this plot point.
I certainly did. And that's part of why I didn't find him initially as compelling as you did, because I had to keep reminding myself almost that there was even another external antagonist, because this movie is Tony Stark versus Steve Rogers for me. And that feels like extra plot thing that will inevitably...
The red herring supervillain plot kind of gets lost in the shuffle, and so it doesn't feel like a red herring.
I followed it the first time I watched it, and I was really looking forward to a giant super soldier versus super soldier fight at the end.
Right, but that changes the movie. It's not about those kinds of things, right?
Well, I guess
that's
not
what
why
they
they
think works
didn't
about the ending, is that it's a
go
twist.
for it. But
Yeah.
He's not someone that's looking for more super people to fight more super people. That's the last thing he wants.
Yeah, what I think they were trying to do was subverting the Winter Soldier thing. You know, you find out in Winter Soldier that Hydra has taken over S.H.I.E.L.D. and has been there all that time. This would be another big reveal. Look, all these super soldiers. And then they deflate that and they say, look, it's more intimate than that.
Yeah.
There is no grand conspiracy. This is a small character film.
It's a small conspiracy. It's a conspiracy of one.
Yeah. And
which is a great
watching
Offspring
it the
album.
Second time, I knew that going in, and the film felt it was better for me. The second time I liked it more, but the first time I was just kind of disappointed.
This is where I finally fully understand Hawkeye and absolutely love him. His whole speech here, I think, is great.
And I was also disappointed, but just because it was a massive manipulation plot that kind of makes the Accords happen in the first place. I didn't love that we had to do that again. And when I say again, I mean just so many superhero movies do that kind of thing, and superhero stories in general. I mean, I'm lumping in comics when I say that. I personally have had to see that story play out so many times, and it's convoluted and it's kind of hackneyed. And it's less hackneyed here than it is in most things, certainly. But Eric, I would argue this is not the kind of movie that requires a twist like that.
No. There's probably a simpler version of this.
I would make the argument that we could know, in this particular instance, maybe I'm wrong, I'm spitballing, but in this particular instance, this could be a movie where we know what his motivations are much more all the way through and what he's doing, and it would maybe be, and it wouldn't be unsatisfying, maybe even would be more satisfying when our characters finally find that out. Especially because we're with so many different characters in this movie that it wouldn't be like, well, why do we have to leave our protagonist and go to this bad guy? He's sympathetic. You can see his side of it. Maybe it's okay that we jump to his perspective, and we already know that.
Well, and I think one of the bigger flaws of this movie with Zemo is that he's not in it enough. He needs to be more present in this whole movie.
Yeah.
He gets lost in the shuffle a bit, but I really like him when he's here.
Maybe you could have even opened the film with his family getting killed. Go back to Age of Ultron. Then that would force you to talk about Ultron more, and that'd be great.
So you
do it like the Deep Space Nine pilot.
Yeah, exactly, sure.
So now that Tony Stark is up on the intel that Steve Rogers already had, now he's on Captain America's side.
No, he's not.
Well, he's not on his side as far as the political argument, but now he
sees that there is, in fact, a conspiracy, kind of, that Winter Soldier was framed.
Yes.
It will be interesting to see how they did. This is the other one.
Yep.
It will be interesting to see how
They just don't do giant compounds real well. I mean, the separate elements look fine. It's just putting them together. All you have to do is put something else in the foreground and it doesn't look as much like a green screen thing. You just got a Donkey Kong Country in. Just put more stuff in the foreground.
This is going to be a thing that's going to be interesting moving forward, how we deal with the repercussions of the legality of this, because the Accords were passed. They exist.
Yeah, we have to continue dealing with it after this.
And it's a thing that, in the comics, we did a good job of dealing with the registration thing for about 5 years. And then at the end of Siege, Captain America has a conversation with Obama, and he just says, maybe we shouldn't do this. And Obama's like, I think you're right. And then just no more registration. But this needs to continue to be discussed moving forward because it exists now.
Thanks for simplifying our comics, Mr. President. We needed that badly.
Well, the problem with the Accords is that they only work as long as the superheroes agree to them anyway. I mean, they can kind of stop following them at any time, and what can people do to them?
Well, they can make it
that they
what they're doing
to them
completely
before the Accords
illegal.
anyway.
Well, they can make it completely legal, and they will now prosecute you if you go out and do these things.
In the comics, what they did is they find the superheroes that agree with them, and they come after you, and they put you in shackles, and they throw you in prison. The problem
I just mean as a whole.
But 100% of them
yeah.
would have to agree that that's a bad thing, and that's not going to happen. That's why you had a battle in the first place.
Yeah.
And conveniently, so that we can make that story work, we had to have that be almost exactly half and half. And in this, it's exactly half and half, which gets hilarious.
It's really nice.
Again, I like that.
Like even numbers.
Each side there are characters that are there for different reasons than the big main reason, and that makes it feel less contrived. But the number is real easy. It's 6 and 6.
Yeah, Ant-Man doesn't have a dog in this fight. He just showed up because Captain America asked him for help.
But that's so much fun.
Black Panther also, is kind of there for whatever. I don't know what Vision's
Black
doing.
Panther's there for Winter Soldier.
Yeah, he's there for Winter Soldier.
His dog is different.
Mm-hmm.
And, in a way, they're all there because of Winter Soldier.
Mm-hmm.
But he's not there because it's the right thing to do. He's there means to an end.
And while they were trying to kill Winter Soldier earlier, as far as I understand it, those superheroes showed up to take him in to be processed, like to go on trial for his crimes. They're not there to kill him.
Yeah.
Because he needs to be put on trial for his crimes because everyone does not know that he is innocent.
Currently.
And I the other thing that I like that this does that I think other things do poorly is I buy that because Steve is acting irrational and acting very emotionally driven because it's his friend, that you would write off him, or you could write off him being like, oh, it's a conspiracy. It's like, well, of course you're saying that because it's your friend. A lot of times when we do that in fiction, it's really contrived.
These characters are more reasonable.
Yeah, I buy that Tony would not believe Captain America because it's his friend that's he's emotionally compromised in the situation.
Yeah, and yet he's had multiple people corroborate that
at
there's
this
something
point,
to what
and
he's
so
saying,
now
right.
he's
And importantly, went off the grid like Captain America in order to do it. Basically, I mean.
But see, I don't think Captain America was behaving emotionally solely through this whole thing. I think that's just how it appeared to the rest of the Avengers who didn't have the same information he did.
And to be fair, again, we are distance from him, so it's hard not to see it from their lens.
Right, so now that Iron Man knows, he's like, oh, yeah, you were not behaving completely emotionally. There's something to your story.
I really like this Iron Man armor with all the extra.
Yeah, I just think
notes.
I just think Steve could have worked harder to convince them that he was in the right and this was an extenuating circumstance.
Yeah, why didn't he present the evidence he had?
And that's where he's wrong, and that's not a criticism of the film. That's a place where he has gone, let his emotions drive him too much because he's come to not trust the system at all, and because of what happened in Winter Soldier, he's to a point where once the Accords happen, you put those two things together, and you can see why he would be driven to a place where he would think they're not going to listen to me anyway, and he makes the mistake of running off by himself without even giving them a chance. That's the mistake he makes. That's where he is in the wrong. And both of these guys at different points are massively in the wrong.
We talked about this in the other one. Before this scene, what is the purpose of this windowed door? This armored window door.
Well, you see, we built a functional set for this bad guy to operate in, right?
If anyone knows what this door's function is, I genuinely want to know, because I don't understand why it's here. Other than it's super dramatic and cool.
What is Sokovia in the comics? Is that a made-up state for this universe, or is
I believe
that in
so.
the comics?
I don't think it's in the comics.
It's fun. Anytime you look up something that is just in this universe, you can tell right away because the first several articles just say Earth 99999. Because that's the I don't know if you know that, but in the Marvel Comics multiverse, the cinematic universe is technically one of those and connected to it, and it's Earth 99999 or 199, I forget. I'll find out here in a moment.
I like when Captain America walks up to him and he has that comment about how he's got a little bit of blue. He's like, it's nice to find imperfection. That's a nice little moment.
You've been down that road, Neo. You know where it goes. Oh.
And this scene, I think we should only see the footage. We're going to keep cutting to the scene. We should only see what Tony's seeing, because I think the worry is that because this is grainy footage, it won't be as emotionally impactful to us. But I think we should just be seeing what Tony's seeing.
Yeah, they made that up for this movie. Or for these movies. And I'm a little bit confused as to what kind of a payoff this is supposed to be. I'm not sure as to whether or not the Russos expect that we remember all of the images we saw when Zola presented the Hydra conspiracy to Captain America on all the monitors. So if you go back and look at that, and I don't know if you know this, Sarah, but that's where he learns. That's where Captain America learns about this. That's why he knows about Winter Soldier killing his parents.
Okay.
And I don't know if this is supposed to be. And I did too, because I didn't remember that. And you blink and you miss it. So I don't know if this is supposed to be a reveal for the audience or if we're expected to remember that.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure.
Captain America's arc looks a lot different if you know that from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
If you're thinking about it at all, and even people who remember it, I don't know that they would be that they would need to be reminded of it here. So it's a reveal, even if you know it already potentially.
And I only knew it going in because I happened to rewatch Winter Soldier like the day before I saw this.
And that's your shades of gray.
Because that's not a thing
right?
I remembered.
The idea is Captain America is not practicing what he's preaching. He's compartmentalizing just like Nick Fury did, and he's kept this from Tony because he didn't think he could handle it. He thought it would be easier on him.
And because it would turn Tony against his friend, theoretically.
Yeah, and so he's keeping...
Didn't he just say, did you know it was him? Or did you know, and he's like, I didn't know it was him? Or did I read that wrong?
He has a line where he says, I didn't know for sure.
Okay.
Where he knew that Hydra killed his parents, and
Right.
he could suspect that it was Winter Soldier, but he did not know 100% for
Yeah,
sure
and from those images that we had in that's
all you
what
can
we knew, was that Hydra murdered them because they were X's on a list. Their pictures were X'd out.
Yeah.
If memory serves, and that's what it was. By the way, this tragic Civil War theme in the score is wonderful.
Everything's falling!
Tony and Steve, as enemies in this, kind of get their own tragic "we've become enemies" theme, and I think that's great. So, Sarah, where do you land on this whole thing, as far as Steve's trying to explain this to him? It wasn't him. He couldn't control himself. There was nothing he could do about it. He shouldn't be held accountable. Tony basically says, I don't care, and just keeps going.
He doesn't say I don't care. He says he murdered my mom.
I'm saying, I said basically.
Yeah.
I used the word basically, Eric. He does not care.
I think he's a little over the top. I mean, I can see how he'd be emotional, but I don't know. It's always hard for me when a character refuses to listen to anybody.
Well, and I think it's all a lot
I just
easier.
think he's too lucid in the rest of the scene to buy that he is like losing himself like this.
I think it's all a lot easier if we start at the end of this fight. Like if this fight is just the end of this, where it's the three of them fighting in that small room,
Yeah.
I think it all works better, but it has to be the end set piece of a summer blockbuster.
You're right. Yeah, it really should be Iron Man versus the two of them together. They're my enemy right now because, you know, not just Cap's protecting this guy who killed my parents, but Cap kept this from me, and this guy who murdered my parents is helping him. You honestly don't even have to suss out the motivations at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's one of those rare places where I almost wish they weren't talking about it as much. Isn't that weird?
I think you would buy this all more, and it would sell better if it starts here in this small room where they're going to have a real small intimate fight.
Yeah, because from this point on, I buy it a lot more.
It's because it's the climax of a summer blockbuster, and as small and intimate as this is, I think they're still afraid that it's too small. Because this is where the scene starts, really. He
does say, I don't care.
Yeah.
By the way.
Because he killed his mom.
Yeah. But you said he doesn't say, I don't care.
No, I was saying it's not that simple, it's not just that.
Right.
Because he killed his mom. But yeah, if the scene starts here, I think it flows better. And you could take all of that time and give it to Zemo.
But all I'm saying is, why does he killed my mom line matter that much?
Because it's his mom!
Who cares?
If you killed my mom, I would be real angry about it.
But he didn't do it on purpose.
But we don't know if Tony knows that.
Steve just explained it to him.
But he's not thinking right.
And Tony says, I don't care. You see what I'm saying? Like, I just don't fully buy it. And part of the problem is, I wasn't sure earlier on in the film how much anybody understands what happened with Winter Soldier than
and I'm
Steve,
not clear either.
And we could have made that clear. So in the theater, I mean, I'm somewhat reacting because of the way I felt about it before, but like in the theater, I was like, wait a minute, I don't know what people know, and that makes it a little bit harder to swallow that whole thing.
Mm. Because Steve doesn't seem to have really talked about Bucky to people.
Yeah. So that's a mistake he made too.
Mm.
And that could be interesting if we talked about it. Because again, that's a thing where he's acting a little bit too much like Fury. He needs to be more transparent. But
I love this sequence. I think they both do an amazing job acting. So much so that I think Black Panther's speech is a little on the nose.
It is.
He sells it.
Yep.
I don't think about that because he really says it so well.
In fact, in the theater, I was sitting here, like I could tell where we were going with this, and I was ready to not like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the delivery's so good, as you say.
And this is the moment to me that sells Zemo completely. When the dust clears and the screaming stops, and all of this, and he's like, in the Avengers, they went home. Because that is a point. That's not a point that's made by this movie, but it's a fair point about superheroes. They don't do cleanup. They do have their big superhero fights, and then they leave.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the idea that that's the real problem, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, back from before, I don't mean to sound insensitive. Obviously, he's going to have a difficult time dealing with the physical entity that murdered his mother. Mm-hmm. But I still don't buy that he could process all of that. Yeah, I feel like he'd be
that's why I
much
think
more
he
angry
doesn't
with
care
Captain
whatever
America.
Captain America says. He's not processing right now. He's in pure emotional rage mode. It does not matter what you say. There is nothing you can say to me in this moment that can justify this. Give him an hour, and I don't think he'd feel the same way. In this moment, all he cares about is that this person murdered his parents.
That's just, I don't know. There's something about that feels a little forced to me. Again, because I don't mean to talk in circles, but I feel like he's too lucid throughout that scene.
And I think it's a lot that middle bit there that I think could be cut.
Yeah.
I would have led with that. I also don't know why he's fighting him hand to hand. He's covered in lasers.
The Winter Soldier took quite a bit out.
Yeah, but we know the Unibeam still works, and he just used repulsor. Like, he has lasers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he just used one in his hand, too. Why is he fighting hand to hand?
I don't know. Because this fight has to be fair in any way, otherwise Captain America loses. Which is not as bad as it is in the comics, where he punches Tony's faceplate off. Hermetically sealed metal armor punches it off in the comics. Well, that's a callback to First Avenger.
It is, isn't it? That's pretty cool.
Did you get it, Tony? I referenced my past. It's a thing. I mean, you weren't there, but...
Yeah, you're in the dark about a lot of things. Honestly, if I had just told you that this guy was brainwashed a long time ago, you probably would have just been fighting me this whole time.
There was some kind of omniscient people watching. They would get that I just made its reference to a thing I did before.
Did you write that down, or did you make it up off the top of your head?
I think he's wearing his mask for this whole sequence. I've complained about that before. He wears it through this whole ending.
And of course, you had the whole thing about how he should have used the Unibeam way earlier.
Yeah, because Winter Soldier grabs his chest and it's just cracking, and I'm just Unibeam. It's like 15 seconds before he finally fires it. And we mentioned this in the other one. We didn't mention it here because we were having a discussion about sides and motivations.
Yeah.
But I don't know what it is about the Winter Soldier losing his arm that's horrifying, but it is. It really resonates with me when he stands up and his arm's missing. It's robotic. He can get a new one.
At least it's that arm.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Well, and I like that all three of them going up against each other like that lose all the things that make them heroes. Or villains in the case of Winter Soldier when he's a villain. But yeah, the thing that most resonated with me in the theater was Captain America dropping his shield. When he has finally allowed himself to become emotionally compromised and is not in the right when he won't allow himself to change, and he decides he's not worthy of the shield anymore. I like that a lot.
I have a whole read on this scene and this character. We know for a fact from this scene, this is a guy with a Napoleon complex. He's everyone's boss ever. He has too much power and is real happy with his power. And I think, especially because he's Martin Freeman, I think moving forward he's going to be not a major antagonist, but a reoccurring thorn in sides. I could see in the future he will be the face of the negative consequences of the Accords. I could see him coming back as just the annoying government guy. That
guy was Arthur Dent in Hitchhiker, if you didn't recognize him right off.
And he's Bilbo in The Hobbit.
Oh, I did not recognize him.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people didn't even notice him there just because...
It's a minor role.
He's barely there, yeah. And it's been a lot of years since I've seen him in anything.
Yeah, I think most people at this point would remember him or know him from Hobbit and Sherlock.
Okay, yeah, and Sherlock I haven't watched much of, so he would look more like he looks here in that than...
Yeah, he looks identical to how he looks in Sherlock. Because there's no, prosthetics or anything. Or...
Yeah. Well, not just that, but I'm just saying, it's been a long time since I've seen him, so he's aged some. He looks different.
Yeah, because he's also in The British The Office, and he's significantly younger there.
Yeah. Yeah, he looks really young in Hitchhiker. But, I mean, it's been 15 years now. No. 12. That was 05, I think.
I don't know.
Yeah. I was thinking that as earlier, but it's not.
I really like that word choice. It's a bad beat.
Yep.
I have nothing more to add to that. I just think it's a cool word choice. And it feels like something Rhodey would say.
I'm impressed with the writing in this scene from this character. Now, Aaron doesn't think that Stan Lee would make that mistake.
Nope.
I have,
Are you Bill Gates?
Here's the thing. If it's handwritten, it could be crappy handwriting.
It's not. It's printed. I just saw the label.
Okay. He could be...
Well, it's an N versus an R, though.
Yeah.
I mean, those are really easy letters to confuse.
Yep. Especially if you have eye problems.
They shouldn't be driving FedEx trucks. There's a lot of... I think we had this in the spoiler cast where I brought this up.
There is a difference between reading and driving, yeah.
Yeah. He's wearing glasses. I don't know. I don't like it. He's one of the most famous people in the world. It's real weird.
Yep, and then I bring up senility. You can get away with a lot more of that kind of stuff when the actor is in his 90s.
It's true. I'm also going to guess he did not drive that FedEx truck.
We're probably not. Yeah, Stanley ends up driving a lot in these.
Yeah.
He's behind the wheel a lot. Yeah. I actually want that FedEx driver to be the guy that tried to pull the hammer out of the ground. You know what? We can't say that Alfred Woodard is the only person that has played multiple roles in this universe, because Stan Lee has done it in every movie.
Unless he's secretly been the Watcher the whole time.
That's right. That's what a lot of people want him to be.
Yeah,
I love this part.
But we're also not sure if they have the rights to the Watcher because of the whole FF thing. So,
in the letter that Steve wrote, he says that he didn't tell Tony because he thought he was sparing him, but he was really sparing himself.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that letter helps me sympathize with him a lot more. I don't feel the same way about Sarah with it. I left the theater and surprisingly felt almost more on Tony's side, but not necessarily politically, just in the way they're behaving and treating each other.
No, I'm kind of on Tony's side on everything in this. It's a gun. It's gun, man.
Yeah, you mentioned that you wanted to be more impressed with these credits than you were.
They're fine. They're not as cool as the Age of Ultron.
And that has the best one.
I like that they're in shadow. It's a shades of gray kind of thing.
It up as a team movie.
It's a thematic choice. I get it.
It is a team movie. We cannot really look at this as solely a Captain America film.
Yeah.
Especially because in your Captain America movie, you're ending with these credits that could be Avengers credits.
Yeah.
You're putting all the symbols of all these characters behind the actor names.
I love that it's just wings. They don't have a symbol for Falcon, so they're just like, I don't know, wings.
Wings.
I guess Hawkeye's kind of got that too.
We can't give him Red Wing because that's shaped weird. You wouldn't even be able to tell it was a bird in these shadow credits. I do like that they're shadows because shades of gray.
I thought his symbol was like pilot wings. Or maybe
I don't know that he really has an official symbol,
really.
Yeah. Well, somehow Martin Freeman got in V's.
I mean, he is a name.
Yeah. It's just he's not on screen enough. I wouldn't think he would wind up there. I think he'd be in the normal master list. Meanwhile, back at Wakanda. First at Wakanda. So Eric, you had... We talked also a little bit about...
That's what Baron Zemo looks like in the comics.
Ah.
He's got a sock head and it's the best.
He looks a lot different.
Yeah. There's concept art for him for this movie and it looks amazing. I hope they use it later. Sorry.
Yeah, we also talked about how long it's going to be before we pull him out of ice.
Yeah, I don't know. Because it feels like we put him on ice because we can't use this character without controversy in this world. So we want to put him away for a little bit so we can...
See, you can read that retroactively if it's a while. I think he'll be in Infinity War because everyone and his dad is in Infinity War. I also think that the real reason that's there is to make him super tragic.
See, the way I've tended to read it, and there's no real way to know until we see Black Panther Infinity War, but the way I've tended to read it is that we're going to take him off the table until everyone's resolved their differences and they're all on a team again, and then we can bring him back.
Yeah.
Right now, he's...
And again, I think down the road, if that's what happens, that's the only way to read that. But verdict's out right now.
Yeah.
Black Panther kind of has his own theme in the score a little bit, and I'm hoping that that's in his movie. And I never thought I would care about a Black Panther movie, but I was so ready for Wakanda when we got the end there.
They've not been great at continuing themes.
What do you mean?
I mean, like Iron Man's had two
in the story,
yeah. From movie to movie, they've not been great at that.
No, sorry. What do you mean the heart motif, Eric? The heart motif. I didn't even talk about it. He broke his heart. His heart got broken. He literally broke his heart. What do you mean? They're great at continuing themes. Oh.
Sophia Russo did a great job as teenage girl. I wonder if she's connected to the Russos.
I think the prospect there is good. Yeah.
Oh no, it's not an uncommon last
That's
name.
true. But little bit parts, you do tend to give your family roles or
people from the sitcom you worked on.
Yeah.
That guy's actually an Oscar award-winning writer, or he's some kind of award-winning writer.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, he kind of just like also likes to act, but he's primarily a writer.
But yeah, to your point earlier about musical themes,
Yes.
The only one that is really stuck so far is Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
It's not in this anywhere because they don't think this is an Avengers movie.
Well, and also, that movie was directed, those two movies were directed by the same person.
That's a great point, yeah. But so was Iron Man, and I don't think that theme really makes it an Iron Man 2.
It comes back a little bit in Iron Man 2, I think. It's not in 3 at all. But again, the director shifted, so I'm not sure.
And that's understandable because that movie is so different tonally, and
but I don't think Winter Soldier has the theme from.
It opens with it.
Does it?
Yeah, they telegraph right away this is going to be a different movie. So you see Captain America, that is officially the Captain America theme, but from the 40s. We can't continue using that because tonally and tonally it's a different movie and it's in a different genre now. So then it gets a different theme for the spy espionage side of things.
And Thor never really had a theme.
I can't remember if he did or not. I think you just had a really lackluster soundtrack the first time around, so I don't remember really caring for that. I think I might have even brought that up in the commentary. I'm sorry, do you want to talk about themes?
I think he's
snoring. Do you think the oh, okay. Alright. Are you dreaming about Giant Man? Or
he's dreaming about being a giant dog.
That giant ant that someone called a ugly looking dog in Ant-Man. Is that what you're dreaming about? But what about the giant ant? Anyway. Sarah has not yet seen all the Marvel movies. She still hasn't seen Doctor Strange.
Oh, yep. Need to see that
so
one.
We gotta do that at some point. I had kicked it around having you watch it while Eric and I talked over it. For Marvel Mania. Again, we've already recorded that, but that'll come up in a couple days, and that's our last one, of course.
Yep, Freddie made it hard to get to the theater last couple years.
Yeah. Yeah, but we have had him go to the theater with us a couple times recently, and he seems to be okay, so you can go to more things now.
Yeah. Yeah, 2.5 kind of seems to be that magical age.
Although I wish they wouldn't make me pay for a ticket for him. Sometimes they do that. And I'm like, guys, he might run off and I might have to take him out and leave. That doesn't seem quite fair, but whatever.
It's because you're paying for seats, I think would be their argument or their thought process. It's like, well, he's not going to be sitting in a seat. He's going to be sitting in my lap primarily.
I think... Well, at least the lady who did it last time, I think she just wasn't all there. But there is like a 2 and under policy.
I don't know what the cutoff is, but is it 2 and under? Yeah.
I feel like it should be like 4 and under. Like,
yeah,
you're not really processing the movie you're seeing. I don't know.
Yeah, unless it's Nemo.
Well, that he's a liability. You might have to leave. Like you might have to forfeit your own ticket.
Yeah.
But anyway, I don't mean to be stingy. That's my rant for this week on a show where we don't do rants. But Eric, this song choice strikes me as a real Falcon song choice.
Yeah.
You could have seen this in Winter Soldier.
And I don't know why it's just in the back half of the credits.
I don't either.
Because usually what we do is we do score over the main credits, and then when we get to the scrolling credits, we do songs or something, or we just do score. This had more score and then a song started as if, well, we ran out of score, something has to go here.
It might have just been, that's the place where when you let the credits run out, we can use this entire song. You see that a lot.
Mm.
Now, I'm wrong if we don't hear the entire song.
I think we do. I think it ends and then it does the after credits.
Yeah. I also like this song.
It's all about left hands and right hands, which obviously Winter Soldier, he only has a right hand.
Right, yeah.
And his left hand's free because it's not
left
there.
hand actually isn't free because that's the one that's being controlled.
Well, it's not there. It's free.
I don't think that's what we're talking about in this song. Oh, I don't really know what the song's about. You know. I'm not really ready to analyze these lyrics here.
What does that mean?
I don't know. Flower should have been one of the words that makes his programming.
No, it's because in the scene where Captain America asks Bucky, "Are you sure you want to go through with? You want to do this?" He's like, "Yes, I want it to be painted with flowers this time."
Oh. Mm-hmm. Is that? Would you like to sign my robotic arm?
Yeah, I
got it back. You want to sign it?
I was gonna say.
What is going to happen to him?
He'd throw a peace symbol on it, but he would have missed that whole era.
Yeah,
he would have no context for that.
Will he get a prosthetic arm? I'm going to assume it's going to be made from Wakanda by vibranium, right?
Yeah.
I didn't even think of that. I'm probably not the only person that's thought of that, but. And Sarah, have you even seen this closing credits or this after credit scene?
Yes.
Because we missed it in the theater.
Yeah, but I saw it the last time.
Now I think our theater, when we saw it 3 weeks early, might not have even had it yet. I mean, it's possible.
Yeah.
But the second time around, I didn't go because I didn't even know about it.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. I think it didn't when you saw it, so you didn't stay for the credits when you saw it again.
Because I hadn't heard that they added it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I think that's what happened. And that's what would have happened if you saw Avengers early, because the shawarma eating scene was not in the
early on.
release,
Yeah. But that one, I think they went back and shot at the 11th hour. Maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
No, they shoot it later. They do. You're right. Because that's why Chris Evans is like this. Because he's got a beard. He's hiding the beard.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah, he grew out a beard for a different role. So
that's hilarious.
Yeah.
That I didn't know. That's great. Okay, any other final thoughts? Anything anybody wants to
I don't think so.
mention before we... I think we got about everything we wanted to say last time in here somewhere, Eric.
Yeah.
It's a little shuffled around a little bit.
Yeah.
But...
That was a great Avengers movie.
Yeah.
It was a really good Avengers movie.
Eric, thanks for being a sport, buddy, and doing that with me again. And Sarah, I'm glad you're here with us.
Yeah, that was fun.
So anyway, thanks as always for watching, folks. We sure appreciate it. Tomorrow you will see Past Us. This is also Past Us, but Future Us compared to Past Us, tackling Apocalypse. And then the last of these, which we've already shot, and the last of these is Doctor Strange, which we've also already shot. So thanks again for sticking with us for Marvel Mania. Especially, we want to thank folks that have watched a lot of these or stuck with us through all of them. You guys are fantastic. We sure appreciate it. I know there's been quite a few people that have been watching these along with us and running through our Marvel journey right along with us. So you guys are great. We sure appreciate you. And look forward to X-Men Apocalypse. I know we sure were. Yep. Anyway, see you tomorrow. I am Captain Logan.
I'm Eric.
And I'm Sarah.